I am just not sure how to start this show, fellas. So we're just going to go with the facts. We are here, everybody, on the Irish Breakdown podcast to discuss Notre Dame's 35-32 win over Navy. And I got to keep telling myself that because I have never come out of a win feeling as frustrated and dejected as I do right now, guys. Notre Dame just picked up a 35-32 win over Navy in one of the, I'll just say, weirdest games I've ever seen in my life, guys. I don't know if I have ever seen a game that was as good as it was at times and as bad as it was at times in the same game. But, fellas, end of the day, Notre Dame is 7-3. They got the win. They faced the triple option. You got it out of your system. You were missing two defensive starters. You got the win. It wasn't pretty. It was ugly. We're going to have a lot to say about it. But end of the day, the important thing is to get the win. And Notre Dame certainly did that, Vince. Look, I'm not going to sit here and justify winning is all that matters. No, you missed an opportunity in this game. But they still got the win, and that's key.
I wish there was an option to just stop playing at halftime. How about that? Like, that would have been – we could have gotten the show done earlier. We would have had a better taste in our mouth with everything that was going on. It was just a really, really, really good first half offensively, followed by I don't have answers to what I was watching. Like, I don't understand that. And this is a macro view of things, but still, the game plan in the second half where you try for the home run shot, take a sack, second down, run the ball, and then third down's a grab bag. You don't really know what you're going to get. Most likely they're going to try to run the ball on third and long. And then punt it away. Like, why is that your offensive strategy? I don't understand a lot of the things that happen in the second half offensively. And I think defensively, JD not being in the game really, really hurt them. I don't know how much he practiced this week and how much they were counting on him during the week. And then maybe he was just a no-go today. I don't know the answer to that, but they missed his leadership and his knowledge of how to play defense in this game. Big time.
We'll get into specifics of each later, Sean, but I want to get your thoughts before we get into
just to finish up your point, Vince. I guess JD has a groin that might keep him out even through the Boston College game. So there's that. Look, we've seen this, man. We've seen this. I've seen the conversation in the chat. Everybody. It was all bad in the second half. Offense, defense. The only consistency was special teams. Brian Mason.
How do they keep getting blocked punts, guys? Like, it's coming. I mean, it's coming. It's unbelievable.
But it means they have a coach on the staff that actually looks at the opponent's approach to punt and finds a way to pressure. And he teaches, watch all the guys, when they're coming up to the blockers that are in front of, they all reach around. Mm-hmm. He teaches, get your arms up, reach around, and guess what? The ball just might run into your hand. Right. Don't just run up to the blockers and stop or run into them. Actually try to get your hand up, and that's exactly what happened today. And they got another block. Why? Because the ball just happened to go in that direction.
And they play hard too, Sean. I mean,
they play hard.
The intensity we see from that unit week after week just never changes, no matter who they're playing.
And I think Prince Colley had a big time hit on a kickoff. Look, they looked out right before they tried the surprise onside. Mason told his people, look out for it. And guess what? They tried. And they were ready for it.
Right.
Look, man, I'll say this. Vince, you said they took their foot off the gas, and you could tell.
Oh, God, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I've had enough and heard enough from the head coach to say I'm not even putting that on Tom. Because I've heard it too many times from the head coach. Several times, that's on me. I said this, I said that, just like he said in Clemson. If they wanted to put their foot on Navy's neck, it should have come from the top. The coordinator should not have been allowed to take his foot off the gas.
Sean, can I ask you a question? Do you really believe that? I mean, that not what you just said. Please don't. Let me finish. Let me explain. Let me say this right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really believe that he did and said what he said he did? Because here's my thing. When I watched that game and I watched Navy, do what they did on that first drive, and then I watched the second series, and I see drop back pass first play of the drive, and then they go 3 and out. Then they get to the fourth quarter, and they go pass their second series of the second half. For what they go. Hold on a second. That was the interception. I missed the first 2 plays. Second series, second half, they go run, pass, and then the next series they go pass, run, pass. So, I mean, is that just a head coach covering, or do you really think that he told Tommy to do something different in the second half? I will say this.
All that I'm saying is I've heard it from him multiple times this year.
Sure.
It's on me. I said this. So I'm going to take him at his word until I hear different. It's easy for me to say that was on the coordinator. I'm going to trust if he is standing in front of the bullet. Hey, that's what a head coach is supposed to do.
Sure.
But I'm still going to take him at his word.
Let's just say I disagreed with you that he's just covering for the offensive coordinator, and you stick to your guns on what you're saying. The fact of the matter is where the head coach, in my opinion, needed to step up in this game is on both sides of the ball, there was a severe drop in intensity in the second half. And no matter what you think of the play calling on both sides of the ball, that was the thing that bothered me, is even when Navy was coming back, there was just no urgency at all. It's just kind of like they were like, we got this. It's fine. Let's just get out of here and get this dub. And there was just no urgency. Like, I actually thought we saw good energy early on. I did. I thought early in the game we saw good energy. I thought they came out offensively and they're playing hard. I thought defensively the game plan was just garbage. I didn't think the players weren't not playing hard. Like even on the first long run they had, the linebackers both got ate up, but they both came downhill hard. The second half is a different story, fellas. It is just the lack of intensity. And then, right, who's the okay? I'm going to step up and make a play here, guy. And you get chances to put them away, and you got fifth-year seniors getting holding penalties and in the end zone, and you get fifth-year seniors getting holding penalties down the field, and you get, it wasn't like you could blame it on the young guys. I mean, young guys had their mistakes too. Jaden Mickey got beat, but that's the stuff that's been bothering me all years. When we get into these situations, it's the veterans a lot of times who end up being the ones that you look at and say, dude, why are you making that mistake? I can understand if Jaden Mickey wants to make that mistake, or Prince Jalen Sneed wants to make that mistake, or Junior Tuihalamaka wants to make that mistake. I mean, I could sit here and spin this and say, hey, guys, there were times in the second half they had 4 true freshmen on the field at the same time playing a triple option. Okay. That wouldn't have been the case without injuries. But the thing is it wasn't necessarily the freshmen making all the mistakes. And that's the frustrating thing for me when I look at it. We'll get into the offense here, fellas. We're going to reverse it a little bit because I want to talk about the defense today. I think that as we get ready to kind of criticize what we're about to see, it can't be dismissed about the fact that they did not have J.D. Bertrand and Brandon Joseph in this game. That can't be ignored. It can't be completely ignored. It doesn't completely justify everything, but it can't be ignored because Maris needs to be outside against the triple option. And then you've got him beside a true freshman. And it was just a recipe for disaster. We talked about this, Sean, you and I think talked about it last night. I know Ryan and I talked about this on Thursday. I kind of felt like coming in the game, you're going to see Marist on the outside and Kaiser inside. I was shocked when they went with Marist inside. Vince, and you were talking about this during our group chat. You're like, why is Marist, who's not the most instinctive linebacker, playing inside in this game? It made no sense.
That is befuddling to me because in the pregame show, me, Sean, and Jesse, we were talking about Jesse had his whiteboard up, and he's talking about how to defend the option. And we're talking about the different, the personnel groupings that we would want on the field. And I wanted Marist on the bench because this is not a game for him. And we have seen time and time again where he is good when he is triggered coming downhill with one thought on his mind, go get the football. That's
why we said, though, he should have been on the edge, though. You're either crashing the dive or crashing the quarterback. Right, exactly.
I agree with you.
Exactly.
I feel like there's other guys that can still do the job better than him. Now, injuries affected that because you were down your best linebacker who plays in the middle, and so you had to make an adjustment there, and their adjustment was to put Marist on the inside. I don't think that's a great idea.
See, this is my thing, my somewhat rebuttal to you, Vince, because I don't necessarily disagree with your frustration of how Marist played. My thing is, had he been put on the edge from jump, I don't think we'd be sitting here having the frustration about how poorly he played because he wasn't on the edge, he was inside.
Sure.
You know this playing a triple option. Playing on the edge is a lot easier than playing inside backer because you've got one job. You're either crashing the quarterback. Sometimes you crash the dive if you're backside, but you're either usually crashing the quarterback or you're taking the pitch. I mean, that's what you're doing. Where inside backer, it's just a more complex, and Jesse broke this down with you, Vince. He also did it with me Thursday night. He talked about, as a former inside backer who had to play the triple option in high school, the difficulty that it presents on your inside backers. And you put Marist, your least instinctive linebacker, and a true freshman who's been playing defensive end the last 3 weeks in there in the starting lineup. Like, why was Jack Kaiser? And look, Jack Kaiser played great off the end.
And I wanted him on the field.
Right.
But
this isn't saying Jack Kaiser should have been playing. Kaiser should have been your inside guy, especially once you thought that JD might not play.
And that's so. I think if everybody's healthy,
the thing for me.
If everybody's healthy, and I know Bo is out for the season, but if everybody's healthy, it's Bo on the inside, JD on the inside, Kaiser on the outside, and Marist on the outside. I guess I would, but you could make a case for some other situations.
I don't think I wouldn't. Marist is starting for me on the outside. He's too rangy. Okay. He's too athletic. And again, it's a more simple.
It is more simple
responsibility for the edge guy. So I understand where you're coming from, Vince. I just think how bad he was inside is tainting the role he can give you on the outside. But here's the thing. Bo's been out for a minute.
For sure.
The fact that you took a true freshman who I like, but who's been playing defensive end the last 3 weeks, and you stuck him in at Mike beside Marist against this. And again, we can hammer Marist all game long, right, guys? But you know my stance on this always. I am not going to immediately jump on that dude sucks when my first response is, did you put him in position to be successful? And the fact of the matter is did Marist play well? He did not. Did Marist get put in position to be successful today? Heck no, he did not. And that's my frustration, right? I mean, you're having him and Prince Colley doing an inside. What did we say, Vince? You do not blitz the option. You don't blitz the option.
No, you have to.
The first long run. The first long run. What was it? It was a double inside blitz.
Yeah.
And then he gets the guards were shooting up to the backers. And the Notre Dame defensive tackles, I don't know what they were doing. I mean, and I'm not saying they did something wrong. Clearly, they didn't think they were taking the fullback or something. I don't know what the heck was going on. And the fullback just goes right up the middle, both guys. And then because you blitzed both your linebackers inside, he's out the gate. There's nobody to catch him for 50 yards. A bunch of fullbacks that averaged less than 4 yards a carry went over 100 in this game. Like, we can hammer the players all day long. But the fact of the matter is the players are not the one being paid over $1 million to put a damn game plan together. Al Golden is. His staff is. And this was a terrible game plan and a poor usage of your personnel. So, yes, Marist played awful. But again, it's like, how would you have been critical of if Charlie Weiss would have put Jimmy Clausen in the triple option and Jimmy pitched the ball into the ground 7 times? You said, man, Jimmy Clausen played like crap. And you say, what the heck are you doing? Put Jimmy Clausen and run the triple option. You know what I mean? And that's my frustration with today is, the players did not play well. Cam Hart giving up a big play late in the game. That's on Cam, right? DJ Brown and his penalties. That's on DJ, right? But with some of the guys, I really look at it, Vince, and I say, Marist, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? We can say Marist played like garbage.
Absolutely.
But we should also be able to say he was put in position to play like garbage, in my opinion.
Like I said, I wouldn't even have him in the game.
Something.
So, yeah.
Right. Well, okay, I understand.
I know we're going to disagree about that. That's fine.
You don't take a guy that long and that athletic who's good when you because you said it. When you trigger him, he's good. What do you do with your edge players against the option? You trigger them. It's exactly what you do. So, I mean, it just that's my friend. I mean, Al Gold needs to go to, like, if he's going to come back next year. I'm not saying he's not going to. I'm just making a point. He needs to go to, because you're starting the season off against Navy next year.
Right.
You better go to triple option school this summer, because he had no clue and no answers. I mean, I know they did adjustments, right? But they didn't work. And like when you adjusted to stop this, you opened up something over here. And it was frustrating because you didn't really see them doing anything different in the second half that really took that stuff away. And you let a quarterback that came into this game with one completion on the season beat you multiple times throwing the football down the field. It was frustrating. Can I say this about the defense, though? We learned today that it really doesn't matter what type of offense Benjamin Morrison plays against. He's really good.
Yeah, he's still pretty darn good. Yeah.
So, yeah.
At one point, I wanted to move him into linebacker, by the way, because he was actually making tackles, but that was a different conversation.
Yeah. Can we also talk about how it looked to me like the defensive line did almost nothing this week to prepare for cut blocks? Like, that was one of the least prepared defensive line units I've seen trying to play low blocks and cut blocks.
Well, we were told during the week that they prepared for that during the bye week.
Right. Well, apparently they prepared for it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The number one rule to stopping the option, stop the dive.
Right. And that's
Chris Smith just flying upfield.
Sean,
like,
y'all said it on your show. Vince, y'all said it on your show. We said it on our show. And I've said it on every other show where I've ever talked about the option. I have two comments about the option. One, it sucks. And two, stop the dive. I mean, those are the two comments you'll consistently hear from me about the option.
Yeah. Fullback had over 130 yards. Didn't stop the fullback.
I mean,
ridiculous.
Didn't even come close, Vince. I mean, and again, I'm going to pull up the numbers here coming into this game. The one thing we talked about, the reason Navy's offense was so bad, Navy was averaging under 22 points a game, 21.9 points a game, is because their fullbacks aren't any good this year. You know, Fafano, has 502 yards. He's the kid that led him in rushing today. He came into this game, Vince, averaging 3.6 yards a rush. He had 8.9 against Notre Dame. He had 509 yards on the season. He coming in today. He had 133 against Notre Dame today. Like, I mean, you were your football team was unprepared for what Navy was throwing at you today.
Correct.
And that's disappointing.
Correct.
Because here's the thing. It'd be one thing if, like, just Maris had a bad game. I could say, hey, you know what? 3 games in a row, he was pretty good. The option's just not his thing, Vince. It's all good. Move on. You're not facing the option anymore.
Right.
But it's frustrating when you watch a game, and this isn't a comment to you. It's frustrating when you watch a game and you're like, they weren't prepared for this. And that's what frustrates the heck out of me. It was very clear on defense. They were not, because we're going to talk about how bad the offense was in the second half, but the fact of the matter is the defense was bad from start to finish. I mean, really, they weren't good start to finish. And honestly, if Navy hurt themselves in the first half, the onside kick and then the reverse pass.
Yeah.
I mean, what were you thinking there? And great play by Clarence Lewis, by the way, coming from backside
across the field. Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
man. Great play by him. They got bailed out by some really good individual performances today, but the tackling was poor. The angles were poor. Guys, it was just overall. Now I'll say this, from a unit that coming into this game, it's been pretty good this year, right? So we're venting about this game. They don't face this offense again. So, I mean, that's the saving grace, right? They don't have another option team they're going to face.
This has the possibility of being a one-off as far as defensive preparation and defensive execution and all of those things. This has the opportunity to be a one-off because the defense hasn't played like this all year, but they're not going to face an offense like this ever again, until next year, right? And so, but you're right about the fact that Navy is the first game of next year. We can cover that, as we move forward. Sure. They're going to need to bounce back against a pro-style offense in BC and then a run and shoot, run and gun offense against USC, which is a completely different scenario than playing the triple option. So I'll be optimistic, and I'll say that this could be a one-off, and then they go back to playing a traditional type of offense, and then that's when you can trigger Maris, and he can be the Maris that we know that he can be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Or has been in recent games, right? Correct. You got to hope so. The danger, Sean, is that when you have a game like this, that you can have sort of a loss of confidence, and that to me is my concern. Is a lot of the momentum you had. Go ahead, Sean.
No, I just want to get out healthy.
Yeah.
Like after the first touchdown in the second half and the first series by Notre Dame, I tweeted out, man, let's just let us get out of here healthy. Let's just move on.
Fortunately, they did.
Because I saw the direction. I saw the direction. It was very reminiscent of that Fiesta Bowl. Very reminiscent of the Fiesta Bowl. Like,
absolutely. From an emotional standpoint, as an analyst and a fan, 100%.
Absolutely. And it's like, what's going on? It's like, man, I'm glad Navy took 10 minutes off the clock with that first drive.
Thank God.
Thank you. Thank you, because there was no answer. You can talk about intensity all you want to. Let me tell you something. This is college football. Vince, we were talking about this. I don't know how you could think about taking this is Navy. If there's any team that you just played the number 4 team last week and they quit.
Right.
They
made them quit. You made them quit.
They quit. The academies don't quit. I don't care how many points they're down. They don't quit. It's a lifestyle for them.
Some of these kids are going to be fighting in a war at some point in time in their lives. You think they're worried about a football game?
Absolutely.
Right.
So they're not going to. No, you have to play hard. And for your team not to come out and you talk about a loss of intensity, how?
That's on the coaching staff, and that's on the leadership of this football team, Sean.
Yes.
That's what this is,
yes.
Player and coach-wise. Right? Because, look, we can put it on the coaches, and we will. This is who we are. We are put it on the coaches first. Then we'll talk about the players. But at the same time, it's one of those things where – but where are you as a player, Sean? That's your point. Like, this team's going to fight you. This team's not going to quit. Where are you from a player standpoint? Why do you need a kick in the pants? You know what I mean?
When you have those moments, this is why I said it's very reminiscent of the Fiesta Bowl. In any football game, teams make runs or teams make plays. Like they have athletes too. They compete as well. You knew Navy wasn't going to lay down. You can't be undisciplined. DJ Brown, undisciplined on a big time
fifth-year senior.
Undisciplined again.
Twice
in the end zone. That drive, that could have stymied everything. You shut them down on that first drive, you get the ball back. Now you have momentum instead of your offense standing on the sideline for 10 minutes trying to catch a rhythm in the second half, right? Then, you get 2 opportunities when you get the ball. Drew Pine, you get a short field. You can't miss Michael Mayer on that play. You can't. You have to make that play.
Game's over at that point in time, Sean.
Game's over.
Yeah.
They talked about it. Dan Orlovsky.
Right.
They come with another blitz. He's like Braden Lindsey's wide open.
Right. I mean, we can talk about Tommy Rees all we want, hammer Tommy Rees all we want. And I'm going to have some stuff to say about Tommy Rees, but there were plays called where dudes are open. It's like, what am I supposed to do? They're loading the box with 9 guys. You guys have been telling me all year to throw against that. I'm calling pass plays where dudes are coming wide open. What am I supposed? I can't throw it for them. At the same time, I would say, but you got to coach them up to be able to play better, right? I mean, that's the other part of it. But I mean, at some point in time, like, I can't blame Tommy Rees for Drew Pine missing Michael Mayer on that wheel route, that post wheel concept. I can't. I mean,
it's a great call.
What are you supposed to do?
It's a great call.
You got the best tight end in college football wide open for what would have been probably a touchdown. I mean,
at the very least, you're in the red zone or deep in the red zone.
So, I mean, and that's also true of Maris too, right, Sean? Or right, Vince? Like, here's the thing. I'm not bothered the fact that Maris did a bad job reading the triple option. I'm bothered by it, but like, I'm not going to lose it over it because this isn't this game. But then you get that stupid penalty, or the face mask penalty.
Yeah, the face mask penalty.
It's like, dude, you're a senior because you ripped the guy's helmet off. Like,
right.
It was stuff like that. That wasn't Jalen Sneed making that mistake. That wasn't Benjamin Morrison making that mistake. That wasn't Junior Tuihalamaka making that mistake. That was a senior making that mistake. DJ Brown's a 5th-year senior that's been playing a ton of football. like the one pass interference on Houston Griffith, I didn't think was pass interference. Vince and I debated the DJ Brown holding call, but my whole point is he clearly tugged the guy's jersey. Now you could argue that should not have, that didn't impede him, Vince. To your point, I think you could say the guy wasn't impeded by it, right?
Yeah, right.
But my whole thing is, but why are you tugging anyway?
Sure. Well,
and that's my point.
Because they got bad eyes on the play.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. They were out. The DBs were consistently out of position on the play action passes that Navy was running, and that was the way they would catch up.
Let me correct you. The veteran DBs, not named Benjamin Morrison. I'm being sarcastic because Jaden Mickey got beat on that too.
And that was a bad leverage play on his part, but that's a different conversation too.
But it's just it's frustrating, guys, to see that kind of stuff. It is, because again, we're going to have a lot to say about that. But when you're fifth year seniors, when your seniors are committing bad penalties like that, I mean, that's the stuff that'll get you. Because wasn't that about to put them in a 3rd and long? That face mask was about to put them in I think a 2nd and long, or a really 3rd and long.
2nd and long. I think it's like 16 or something like that.
And you're just like, dude, DJ's 4th and 1. They put that game away after that, guys. That's what would I mean, because that was the first drive that took 10 minutes off the clock, right? I mean, Navy turns it over. They were in Notre Dame territory, I believe, at the time. Notre Dame goes down, hopefully puts that thing away. And it was frustrating. It was very frustrating to see that. And just to see the defensive staff not have answers was that was really frustrating. Yeah. Yep.
So look, but like you said, Benjamin Morrison, thought he played well. I thought Kaiser played well. I thought Prince Collie had some moments. It was good to see 17 out there. And it seemed like at certain times they played him at safety.
Sean, I thought one time they had him at corner because it was the play where Navy called a timeout. They had I look back, it was a running back. They lined a running back outside, but I'm like, is Jalen Sneed playing cornerback right now? Because I'll say something. He didn't always know where he was going, but here's one thing I noticed in the game. Talk about some positive takeaways from the game.
Yeah.
That cat moves at a different speed than everybody else. Right? Like that's what we're seeing from the freshman class at a lot of spots. Benjamin Morrison just moves. He looks different, Sean. Like, you and I talk about this at times. Like, you watch basketball in Chicago when you were younger, when it was even better than it is now. And you're watching all these good athletes, but you're like, oh, that dude right there, that guy looks different. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a lot of guys on Notre Dame's freshman class right now that are that. There's a couple veterans, but like, when Jalen C was out there today, even when he didn't know what he was doing, he was making mistakes real fast.
Right.
Like real fast. And Benjamin Morrison's that way. Tobias is that way.
Yeah.
I
think on the 4th down, they converted the 4th down. That might have been on their first drive in the second half. They called timeout because they were about to go hit 0-0 on the play clock. They call timeout. They come back from the time, and they run a traditional all-tackle play, which probably caught Notre Dame off guard. But Jalen Sneed, he'll learn.
Yeah.
He literally just ran into the offensive line.
Right.
He just ran into him. They got engulfed. He'll learn to leverage that, play off of the guy, and have an opportunity to make the tackle. But like you said, he went. Like he didn't think about it. He ran into a mistake, but he played fast.
Sean, that I can live with that.
Yeah,
I can live with that.
Yeah,
I can live with Jaden Mickey making the mistake he made. Now I'm tired of seeing it as a freshman. Like it's like, guys, at some point in time we need to think about like this keeps happening to him, and maybe he's just not technically and fundamentally ready yet. Right? He's going to be fine, but right now you got to ask yourself: is does he need to step back to watch a little bit? Before you because I guess I don't worry about Jaden losing confidence, but even the most confident guy eventually is going to, you can't keep getting beat for touchdowns.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, like I can live with that though from Jaden. As long as he doesn't lose confidence, he's still coachable. I can live with that. I can live with Jalen Sneed making mistakes. I can live with Prince Collie making mistakes because he's a second-year kid who didn't face the triple option last year, except I think he got like a couple series late in the game. Or was that Georgia Tech he got in the game, Vince? I don't think Prince didn't play against. Did he play a little bit against Navy? Maybe, but again, it was coming off the late in the game and a blowout, that kind of thing. But I can live with those things from those guys. What I'm tired of is when Cam Hart does that, when DJ Brown does that, when Maris Luafau is making dumb penalties. Those are the things that frustrate me because you guys are supposed to know better, and that's been the case a lot this year, where it's not the freshmen that are getting you in trouble, it's the veterans. It was the veterans that were jumping a false starting early in the year, not Tobias Merriweather, not the sophomore tackles, not the sophomore running backs. It was the veterans. The one sophomore that I thought had a really rough day today, Mitchell Evans had a rough day blocking today. And let's you guys got anything else you want to say about the defense? I think we kind of covered everything, right? I'm just ready to move on from the triple option.
There was one comment that was made about the tape. Do you learn from it or do you burn it? I think
I burn it.
Defensively you burn it because or you put it aside until the summer when you're working on it for the first game of next year, right? You don't need to come back to that this year because you're never going to see an offense like that. Offensively, which we're going to jump into now, you use that.
Let me say one thing, Vince. Let me say one thing. Okay. Here's what I would though, that the only film, like honestly, I'm not breaking this game down with my team. I'm not breaking over missed assignments and all that because there's no point. Because what you break down film to correct things so you don't make them that mistake the next game. And to your point, Vince, they don't face us again. You're never going to have these calls.
Right.
I will say this, though. Effort plays, crap technique plays, I'm putting those on a highlight reel, and I'm just like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, I'm shaming them a little bit because some of the dudes on defense need to be a little bit ashamed of themselves by how they played today. We already addressed the fact that the coaches did not do a good job of putting him in position, but I'm not blaming the coaches for Cam Hart running into Prince Colley. I'm not putting it on the coaches for DJ Brown making two poor technical mistakes where you're just not trusting your technique and trusting what's around you. I'm not putting that on the coaches. I'm not putting it on the coaches to Maris Luafau not to rip a guy's helmet off, right? Like we shouldn't have to practice don't rip his helmet off, things in practice, right?
It wasn't even part of the tackle. Like keep your hands to yourself.
It's just so unnecessary. Those are things where I'm like, these are just guys, this is the kind of stuff that can get us beat. And this isn't about the triple option. This isn't about this. This is about you not being disciplined and you not being locked in for this football game. And I thought the offense came out locked in a lot of places in the first half. The defense didn't really feel like that the entire game. And I even thought early, like I thought Navy missed some opportunities early on some of the stops that Notre Dame did have, more so than necessarily Notre Dame having some really good drives. So I was frustrated by that. But it was good to see Jalen Snead out there because, man, that is a dude. I mean, athletically, that kid is twitchy. It was good to see. Let's talk about the offense. Go ahead,
we
Sean.
talked about, just to end it, the offense did what you want them to do. Get off to a fast start and put the defense in position to where Navy couldn't play the way they wanted to play.
Right.
Like coming out of halftime, they had that first drive. Like you said, if the leaders make the plays, Notre Dame gets the ball back. And we're back to the same thing we were doing in the first half. Probably on a short field because the place kicking and the punting for Navy is awful and has been awful all year. So you probably get a short field. Look, you guys talk about the offense because I'm not going to be nice.
It's okay. I will just say this, big picture, guys. That was the most bizarre. I don't think I've ever seen a game that was that different in energy, execution, focus. Like Drew Pine in the first half. Because, like, what did we talk about this game? What was at stake here, fellas? This is an opportunity for you to turn the corner. What Notre Dame showed us today is that they're not the same team they were against Stanford and against Marshall. They're not, because they lost those games. And I actually think in some ways they played worse today than they did against Marshall or Stanford in certain ways. But you're seeing the talent start to take over more than it did against Stanford and Marshall, right? Where, they just couldn't cover Jaden Thomas. Deion Colsey's out there getting open on third down. I mean, Notre Dame, how many third and longs did Notre Dame convert today? You did see Drew step up and play really well in the first half. You did see guys step up, Benjamin Morris and another guy step up, Clarence Lewis stepping up and making a big play. Clarence Lewis or whoever's in that spot doesn't make that play against Stanford, doesn't make that play against Marshall.
Agreed.
Sean, you and I have been begging all year, like, dude's got to step up and make some plays, and to certain degrees, we saw that at times today, which is the difference between losing a game and winning a game. That's a positive. But the takeaway that's not positive coming out of this is still a team that has way too severe of emotional roller coasters from a focus and intensity standpoint. Not only from game to game, but from, as we learned today, flipping half to half. And I think that's the frustrating thing to me is a chance for you to turn the corner as a program, and you didn't. You took a step back a little bit. Now, again, you got the win. You're 7-3. You're going to stay in the top 25. It's all good. You've got a chance to go beat a not very good Boston College team next week. They're going to be okay if they can bounce back from it, but it just shows that this team has not quite arrived yet. I think was blatantly obvious today, right? Like, that doesn't require me to sit here in this role and say, I'm going to give you guys some astute analysis and deliver that. And it's like, well, everybody in the chat's like, well, gee, I didn't know that, right? It's obvious.
Yeah.
But I will say that they did win, and I don't want this to be a show that's only negative, because we did see some really good stuff. What we have been saying all year, where's Jaden Thomas most effective? Over the middle.
Over the middle.
That's the thing. And it's like his mom was kind of coming at me on Twitter today, and I chatted with her a little bit privately. She's like, she has this impression that we think Jaden sucks. And it's like, no, we don't think Jaden sucks. Our beef has been Jaden's not being used correctly. Well, today we saw Jaden used correctly. Everything he caught today, fellas, was over the middle. Seams, over the middle. That's where he's good.
100%.
That's where you use him. We saw Deion Colsey finally getting a chance to play. And finally, Braden Lindsey gets the football. Like, even on the touchdown pass, he made that great catch. Did y'all see before the throw got made, he was initially 5 yards past the cornerback?
Gosh.
And I keep telling people that's been every game from Ohio State to now. That's been Braden Lindsey every freaking game.
Thank you.
You put a good quarterback on the field at any time this year, and Braden Lindsey's creeping up on 1,000. Right. He's creeping up on 1,000 yards, fellas. Right. If they had a quarterback that could. I'm not joking. I'm not being like Vince is laughing and being hyperbolic and right. It's funny. No, it's funny, right? It's funny, Vince. I'm with you. I'm being dead serious. Please, Vince, that was not a shot at you, buddy. I'm fired up right now. Like, I'm totally cool with what you said. I know you were joking. We're good, man. My thing is, however, I'm being dead serious. He'd be creeping up on 1,000 yards right now, if not past it, if they just had competent quarterback play at times, or competent play calling and coaching at times, where it's like on that play, why is Notre Dame so unwilling to say, hit your third step and throw the effing ball? When there's a middle safety and there's a corner on Braden, I don't care if that corner is 9 yards off the ball. In this game, he's still going to get run by Braden. Exactly. Hit your third step and throw the dang ball as far as you can and let Braden go score a touchdown. Like,
and it was rare that he wasn't able to get to his last step.
He had when he actually okay. Yeah. So here's a positive that came out of today's game. Remember during the week, and I've said this before, Vince, you've agreed with me. There are too many times where Drew Pine catches the ball, takes a drop and a half, and then gathers back up, and when he's ready to throw, he's back to where he caught the snap. And that's why the pressure is getting into him, and that's why his height is affecting him. If you notice in the first half, there was a lot of snaps where he was getting deep drops, and he was staying back, and he was throwing the ball where? Over the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. He could clearly see the field throwing those deep in cuts to Deion Colsey. He could clearly see the field throwing those seam routes to Jaden Thomas, right? Because you're getting the proper depth. And then the second half, he went back to kind of early on doing the same crap where he's trying to throw the ball from where he caught the ball. So that was a good thing to see, guys, that Tommy Rees recognized that, and at least in the first half implemented some things where Drew could get more depth, which then allowed him to be more effective throwing the ball down the field. Because, again, if we can get the first half of Drew Pine even close to play these next 2 weeks, Notre Dame kills the next two teams that they play, including USC, right? I mean, the first half was like, if we can build on this, Deion's balling, Jaden's balling. We don't even see much of Michael Mayer in this game. Braden Lindsey's going off. Like this, the backs didn't do anything. Michael Mayer didn't do anything first half because Navy was not going to let him do anything, right? I mean, that's not the Michael Mayer didn't play well. And didn't matter because Jaden went off, Braden went off, Dion did his thing, and Tobias didn't even play today. So that was a positive, right? And something that we can't dismiss. I know we're frustrated. We can't dismiss that. They don't win this game if the receivers don't step up and have big first halves, and if Drew Pine doesn't have a really big first half. And that's the kind of frustrating thing is because all the momentum you got with him in the first half, you completely lost in the second half. And it was part coaching, and it was part Drew. I mean, again, get rid of the ball, dude. You know the protection. You know they're bringing 9 or 8, depending on how many you have out. You know they're bringing more than you can block. You know this. I know that Tommy Rees teaches that. You can't take a sack there. You know you can't block that dude and that dude. Throw off of it. Because like Orlovsky was talking about how, well, they're calling these deep shots. And like, no, every single time you see a crossing route, you see a check down. Yep. I mean, you see something there, you see a hitch route. Like Vince asked me what Tommy was saying to Drew after that first series. The first snap of the game, he had 2 guys open. He had a crosser and a hitch, both open. And he I don't know what he was looking at because I didn't see the behind view, and he takes a sack. He had Mayer, and I can't remember who's running the cross route, both open. It's like the pass he misses on the deep end cut in the first half to Jaden Thomas into the end zone. Audric Estime standing out in the flats with no one within 15 yards of him. It's like, bro, take that. And I don't know what it is about him that's not quite clicking, but he just gets into these rhythms where it's like he'll just lock in and there's just open guy. Because again, I can be critical of Tommy Rees. And here's my criticism of Tommy Rees. For the love of all things holy, when you know they're bringing 9, can I get a screen pass? Can I get an empty release concept, something quick? Like I know that he had hot routes built into the deep stuff, but when you know there's 9 coming, don't give me anything deep. Give me short stuff. Let me catch Braden Lindsay on a slide route. Go put Braden in motion and have him just run a quick speed slide where it's 0 coverage and he catches it and he's up the sideline. Give me a tunnel. Give me a screen to someone other than Michael Mayer or Jaden Thomas. Give me a swing route to Chris Tyree. Remember the play call that Chip Long called against USC in the second half of 2018, where you knew Navy or USC was bringing everybody, and so he said, "Fine, you're bringing a bunch of dudes. I'm going to slip Tony Jones out because you're not going to cover him because you're blitzing everybody and their mother. I'm just going to throw a little 3-yard pass over the top. He's going to catch it and go for a score." I'd have loved to seen that from Chris Tyree in the second half, or even Audric Estime. I mean. So that was frustrating, but at the same time, like I was frustrated by Tommy Rees with some of that, but at the same time, guys, there was stuff open the entire second half.
Yeah.
I mean, so Tommy Rees, the OC, I don't have as many problems with today. Yeah. I have some because and we'll get to some of it, but my issue today was more Tommy Rees, the quarterback's coach, because his quarterback did just completely folded in the second half of the game.
Yeah.
After being brilliant in the first half.
But we've seen this, right? And it is what it is at this point. And I'm talking about this young man emotionally. I'm not going to get into the X's and O's and what Tommy's asking him to do. When it's good, it's good. And when it's bad, it's really bad. We saw it in the spring game. We've seen it in practices, in spring and fall camp. We've seen it in games. We saw it his first start against Cal. Really bad. Running game starts going, he turns it around. Like we've seen it. We saw it against BYU a little bit. Plays really good, then goes into the tank a little bit. It's like that's who he is. He's incapable to kind of like rein in himself when things are going bad. And I don't know if the approach from the coaching staff, because it seems like in the second half, Tommy was really upset in the booth. And I'm sure he pretty conveyed that over the phone when he was talking to him. Maybe there's another approach that needs to take place because screaming at him when it's starting to go bad is obviously not helping. It doesn't help the case. Maybe there needs to be another approach.
Real quick though, Sean, when he was pissed about the throw early in the second half, he wasn't talking to Drew. He was talking to the coach next to him. He wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't on the phone.
Yeah, he wasn't on the phone.
Oh, I'm just saying, if he did talk to him in the second half, not that specifically, I'm sure he can convey his anger because we've seen him do it in other games. I'm thankful that they didn't show a side-by-side of him on the phone with Drew this week, because we got tired of seeing that in other games. But for me, I've just seen, we go from him doing the McGregor to him just looking like he lost his puppy on the sideline.
He was shell-shocked in the second half, Sean. He was shell-shocked.
And I'm like, you're shell-shocked against Navy?
Right.
Like, they're basically, and for me, it's as simple as this. You asked, in my opinion, he's very similar to a former Notre Dame quarterback. They have the same issue. The only difference is that quarterback was a much better playmaker.
Okay, I think I know who you're talking about.
Oh, he's just like Ian Book. He's just they have some of the same issues, right? So you're asking why he doesn't hit the Renzo coming across when that blitz is coming. When everything is perfect, he's a really good quarterback. When everything goes according to plan, this is the look. That's why the hit to Aldrick went, because he knew we're calling this play to slip Aldrick out. We know the blitz is coming. I'm looking for him, and I'm going to get it to him. If Aldrick was like a third or fourth option on that play, where he had to see something pre-snap and then determine that Aldrick would be open, there's no way he pulls the trigger on that. So that's just showing you where he's at. Is it just a stage that he has to go through?
Right.
Starting in his first year? Possibly. Can he improve on that? Absolutely. If he puts in the work, it's not up to us. It's up to him to put in the work to get better. And I'm sure he can if he does it. But as for today, that's who he is.
Right.
Things have to be comfortable for him to succeed. To your point, that falls on Tom. Make him
correct as the quarterback's coach. Yeah, Sean. There's the thing is Drew. When Drew's going well, Drew's very confident. The problem is you have to, as a quarterback, you have to be confident when things aren't going well. Right, and that's what you're saying, Sean. I mean, that's exactly because that's how you get out of a funk.
Yeah, I need him to be. I need him in that situation to be the one creating the urgency. I need him coming off the field instead of getting down in the doldrums about his play, walking up to the offense, clapping his hand like, look, let's go. We go back out here next time. Let's go get 7.
Right.
Leadership was supposed to be one of his.
But it did look like he saw it. That's the thing, Sean. I don't think you can be that way when you're not sure what's happening. And that's the concern that I have about Drew.
No, that's a whole nother, that's an entirely different point. That right there is an entirely different point. And I feel bad for the kid because you sit up here and you watch what he was able to do in the first half.
Yeah.
And you say to yourself,
I mean, Sean, he's hitting seams over the top. He's hitting posts. He's hitting, he's throwing over 40 yards in the air on a sprint out. He's scrambling and picking up yards. He's avoiding sacks. He's hitting deep in cuts for big plays on 3rd and long. It's like, and again, Navy's pass defense stinks, but he was on pace for almost 500 yards.
Yeah.
Right. And you're just like, and then you go to the second half and he has 30, and not because they didn't try to do it. So it is frustrating. And again, of course, at the end of the day, you're the coach. That's on you. That's how every coach should feel that way. If Tommy Rees heard me say that, I would want him to be like, yeah, you're right. That's on me. I'm the quarterback's coach. Every coach should always feel that way. If your kids don't play well, at the end of the day, that's on you, whether they made the mistakes or not. But at the end of the day, too, Sean, is like Drew's a junior, and I love the kid. I do. I love Drew. He's a great kid. He's a great family. At the end of the day, you can only say so much about, well, gee, the coach has got to do this, and the coach has got to do that, and the coach has got to make this play call, and the coach has got to make that play call. As we said, there was a lot of stuff in the second half that was there, that Tommy called that was there, and Drew's just got to get rid of the ball. And because sometimes, Sean, you know this too, you can't coach every kid to be clutch. Some kids just have it or they don't. You can't coach every kid to handle adversity or not. Some kids just do and some kids just don't. Yeah. And that's where I'm a little less apt to put the quarterback stuff on Tommy today. because it is his backup quarterback.
Yeah.
And there are not a lot of other options. Now, again, that's kind of partly your fault because your recruiting situation, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, you're a junior. You've been in the system 3 years. You've got to know on this play, we can't block that dude.
Yeah.
And you can't get sacked by that dude when there's people open.
Yeah.
Now, here's where I was frustrated with Coach Reese's play call today. I thought that the game plan from a pass game standpoint today was very good. I thought the run game plan bothered me, Sean, because what we saw today is that if a team can take the duo away, they've got nothing. Nothing.
As far
like we
as
talked about, there's nothing they can
line.
turn to. There's nothing they can turn to. That's not okay. When a team can take one running play away and you can do nothing about it, that's a problem. And this is what we've been talking about. This is what we kept saying. Like, you can't just keep regurgitating the same thing over and over again, because eventually someone's going to figure out how to stop it. Eventually your offensive line's going to have a bad day. There's not an offensive line in the country that includes the 2017 unit, includes Michigan's unit last year. It includes Bama's unit 2 years ago that won the Joe Moore Award. It includes the vintage Iowa offensive lines under Kirk Ferentz. It includes the Alex Gibbs offensive lines with the Denver Broncos. It includes every single offensive line. Every single offensive line in America is going to have, at every level, is going to have a bad game. The offensive line for Notre Dame today did not play well. I'm not going to talk too much about it tonight. This will be something Vince and I will talk more about tomorrow when we break down the film. Having said that, when the offensive line wasn't playing great, combined with the fact that you have a defense that's geared towards stopping that one play, and your answer is to just keep running it or throw, that's a problem. And this is what we've been warning about for weeks. And everybody's like, oh, you know, if you can do it on Clemson, you can do it on – that's not necessarily how it works, guys. And today we saw that. Navy was able to take duo away. The line didn't play well, and they had nothing to go to. Nothing to go to. And, I mean, that's my issue. It was a watered-down version of last week's game plan, and Navy was prepared for it. Vince, you've talked about this. Y'all, I want to be like, y'all know that they watched your film the last 2 weeks, right? You guys are aware that you sent them film of your game, correct? I just want to be sure that you knew they were going to be prepared. A team that was giving up 87 yards a game rushing was going to be prepared and going to try their best to take that play away. You had to have something other than just throw the ball to beat that. That's my problem. I'm going to stick up for Coach Reese in one area, guys, because I was told at halftime the NCAA called Notre Dame and told them that they have outlawed screen passes in college football now. So apparently that's the reason why they didn't run a screen against 9-man pressures in the second half. I'm being sarcastic for those who might believe that actually happened. I would hope not, but here's the deal. Those are my two issues with Tommy Reese. You kept trying to call these guys. You didn't have to outthink them with scheme in the second half. Give me 3 or 4 screens. Give me 2 or 3 wheel routes with a running back out of the backfield, and that game's 50-something to 24.
Yeah, all you need is a swing pass. It doesn't even need to be a screen. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying. Like the running back wheel routes right behind the pressure. Because the reason I wouldn't say swing, Vince, is because the edge pressures can just from a quarterback standpoint, the edge pressures can kind of get in the way of a swing. The reason I would say just like a little quick wheel is because I can actually throw behind the edge pressure. Gotcha. But you and I are thinking the same thing. It's just I'm just thinking from an angle, right? And that's why I brought up the play against USC. How far did Ian Book throw that ball down the field? Like, didn't Tony Jones catch it like 3 yards down the field, 5 yards down the field, and it's a big touchdown, puts him in the playoff? Like, it's not rocket science. You know, like, give me a buck sweep against a team that is crowded inside. There's nothing you can do to get the ball outside. Nothing, really. Like, somebody was like over under on jet sweeps. Braden Lindsay at 5.5. We took the under, but I didn't think it was going to be 0. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
I just keep.
I know there's so much more that Sean wants to say. Go ahead, Vince.
I just keep coming back over and over in my head and thinking to myself, they don't win this game if Braden Lindsay doesn't have the catch of a lifetime.
Mm.
They don't win the game. They don't win the game.
That was so sick, by the way.
It was
That
an
was so
unbelievable.
funny.
It's the most unbelievable catch I've ever seen.
He
They don't win the game if he doesn't do that.
He made 2 great catches. The RPO hitch he caught earlier in the game, that ball was hot and high.
Yeah.
And he went up and got it. Yeah.
Yes. Just mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing.
I was can I change the subject just for a second on this? I was so happy for Braden in that first half because that kid gets so much unjustified crap from Notre Dame fans.
Yes.
And it's like if y'all were at games and saw how often he was open by just as much as he was open against Navy before the ball was thrown, you'd be like, good Lord, this kid should have 1,000 yards this year. And it's frustrating because people are, oh, he stinks. You know, it's like, well, he can't throw it to himself. But I was happy for Braden Lindsey. I really was. And Jaden Thomas too, you know, because we've been hard on him. We have been hard on him. I mean, again, I didn't say the things that I think how it's been perceived by some, but you know, he had a terrible game against Marshall and he's bounced back and he's played good football. He's been their best receiver from a volume plus production standpoint the last few weeks.
Well, and Deion Colsey converted up all those third downs. I mean,
imagine that. He didn't just learn how to problem. Guys, Deion Colsey didn't just learn how to play the last 3 weeks. This is my frustration. Just like Tobias Merriweather didn't just learn how to run a post route the week of the Stanford game. That's a different conversation for a different day. But we saw today that when the receivers actually get the ball, they're good. And Lorenzo Styles did nothing but catch now screens. But that's not even that came across as an insult. That's not what I meant it by. What I meant is the guy that was perceived to be your best receiver didn't even catch any balls beyond the line of scrimmage. It was the other guys. He did catch the ball.
Off the ball.
I didn't want it to come across as like I was insulting Braden in that instance. That's not what I meant. I just meant the guy that was perceived as your best player, that receiver coming into the year, didn't catch any balls past the line of scrimmage, and your receivers ripped Navy up. Now, again, Navy's secondary is not that good, but they look like what a really good receiving corps is supposed to look like against a bad group of secondary players. They were smoking them.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating stuff. So just the lack of creativity in the run game, the lack of diversity in the run game, we've been calling for, and everybody kind of pushed back on it when they had the success they had. But guys, you knew this was going to come at some point in time. I'm just glad it happened against Navy and not USC in 2 weeks, where somebody's just going to say, look, dude, we're just not going to let you run that play. And when you got nothing to go to, oh my gosh. Y'all, Ole Miss is about to run Alabama off the field right now. You guys watching this?
Mm-hmm. I wish
so. Anyway,
never mind. I'm not gonna say what I wish.
I got it. But so that's the frustrating stuff. Is like I'm telling you right now, Chris Tyree could have had a long touchdown in this game if they just would have gave him one quick mini wheel route. I'm just
agreed. And maybe Notre Dame covers, and I'm not so depressed right now.
That's right. Vince is out some money. That's why Vince is really salty today. Freaking Maris cost me $50.
5.
Yeah.
Let's not get crazy.
Yeah. I thought you'd have won 50.
Wait a minute.
No,
but I thought you'd have won 50.
It was. I would have won more.
Hey Vince, if you were to place a bet, Vince, and you won $10, and you placed another bet, and you won $100, which win was better?
Ooh, well, the one where you win more money.
Oh, so a win is not a win. That's all I'm trying to say. Somebody said a win is a win. That's all I'm saying.
A win is not just a win. I was in the worst mood possible the entire second half, and I never thought Notre Dame was going to lose. I mean, it got dicey at the end, okay, but
you know why I didn't think they were going to lose, Vince? You know why I knew they were not going to lose? Because when they scored that last one, they would have needed to do something against the special teams to get the ball back and win. And I said, there's no way. There's no way.
Right.
Because I have faith in Brian Mason to say those kids are going to be ready. And what did Matt Salerno do? As soon as the ball came in, he went right at it. He was coached to do that. He was coached to do that.
Correct.
And, that's the thing is like, they are great at everything he can control. I can't control the kicker. By the way, that was the one thing I really got frustrated by in the first half from Coach Freeman when they ran a now screen on third and long. And I'm like, that's a great third down call if you're in 2 down territory.
Right.
Like Vince, to your point, like a 45-yard field goal, that's not outside Blake Grupe's. You made this point in the chat. That's not outside Blake Grupe's range. he can kick it far enough, but he clearly has shown he can't make that kick. It's not about distance. Distance doesn't matter if you can't kick it within the freaking thing. Like, I'm sorry, why are you putting that on? That's not even on Blake Grupe again. You knew he was going to miss it. I knew as soon as he went out there, he was going to miss it. So it's like, there's some frustrating things in the game. Like, and again, I think Coach Freeman's done a very good job getting this team turned around. Today was a little bit of a step back, and they're going to have to figure some things out. All I'm going to say, Sean, to your point earlier about taking him at his word is we have seen him say things publicly and then the next week things change because what he says publicly and privately is different. But I completely understand where you're coming from, and I get the point you're trying to make. It's just, I hope we see that, because the one concern I have about Coach Freeman, and maybe it's a lack of faith in the personnel or coaching wise or player wise or quarterback, maybe even.
Yeah.
But he's going to have to understand that, I don't care how good your defense and special teams are, to win a championship college football, you got to be willing to score. Right. And this team had a chance to really kind of come out with that hungry, because the first halftime I'm thinking, hey, this team's turned the corner, fellas. This team has turned the corner.
Yeah.
They played with, there were some mistakes in the first half, but they played hard. They played with fire. They were ready for Navy. And then bam, 35-13. The offense is rolling. And here's what I'll say. A win is a win from the stat sheet. They're 7-3. And they're not 7.5-3 if they would have won by 40, right? They're 7-3. But I also believe, and Sean, this is, I think, where you're coming from, is we're not just talking about the stat sheet. We're talking about building your football team. And you missed an opportunity to get some much needed momentum and confidence and playing time for some of your younger players in maybe lower stress situations that you missed out on again because of your inability to put a team away the way you're supposed to. This Notre Dame team should be 8-1, 9-1 right now, with about 5 blowout victories or 6 blowout victories at the very least, right? And the fact that this team, they haven't been able to push the right buttons to get this team to really bury people late is why we're where we are, where they're 7-3, but you don't feel great about it. I feel better about it because they won, right? And
well, for sure,
it wasn't Stanford, It wasn't Marshall, right? But it was a missed opportunity. It was a missed opportunity. But again, I'm going to say this, guys. It was the option. It was all this crazy stuff. Sorry, Vince. And they got the W, and now it's about, okay, now you get it. Here's the thing. Here's the great thing about it. I love about football, regular season. You get another shot next week to do this now against BC. You get another shot next week to go out against a team that's struggling, against a team that you should dominate, and to get the momentum that you failed to seize this week. Because there is some stuff to take out of this game. You can sit down with Drew Pine and say, bro, when you do this, pretty good football player, man. We need you to do that all the time. And hopefully it eventually sinks in. If not, then we're going to just keep seeing more of this. But hopefully it eventually sinks in. So.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Absolutely. Because there was a lot of good in the first half. There was a lot of good in the first half, especially on offense.
Yeah.
It was Drew Pine's best game that he has played all season at that point, and I was telling anybody that would listen that was the case. He was going through his reads. His passes were accurate. He was executing. He was being smart on when he would tuck the ball and run. I mean, he didn't really have any mistakes in the first half, like at all. And then the first thing they do when they come out in the second half, it felt like
no big mistakes.
Michael Mayer long, and it was all downhill from there. Like that, It felt like that was the beginning of the end for the good play of Drew Pine. And that was disappointing because I felt like he had a very, very good Drew Pine first half, right? That's the best Drew Pine's going to play. And that's okay because you are up 35-14. And against a lot of defenses, especially the ones Notre Dame's going to face the rest of this year, that's good enough quarterback play to be up 35-14, right? He just needs to put a full game together. And did he get a lot of help from his offensive coordinator at times? No, absolutely. But there were things that he missed too. So
I'm not putting this game as much. Yeah, I'm not putting this game as much on Tommy Rees as I have in the past. Look, there's stuff I didn't like from this game from Tommy Rees, and I talked about it. You can't be so duo reliant that if a team can stop it, you got nothing. You got nothing but dropping back and throwing Drew Pine a million times. I mean, that's on you. That's on you. But Sean, to your point, there was stuff that's simple, basic stuff that you got to be like, come on, man, like you got to be able to hit that.
But just understanding, we talked about it. I'm sure you guys talked about it. I'm sure Vince pointed it out today. Navy gave up less than 100 yards on the ground defensively. Yeah. I don't care whether it's schematically or athletes. They do a good job against the run. And if you thought you were going to come in with a vanilla run plan against a team that's good against the run,
right,
then that falls on you.
Right. And vanilla is like, you can say, well, they ran the same plays they ran last week. No, actually they didn't.
No, they didn't.
They were far more duo related, oriented than they were last week. But the vanilla isn't just about the play calls. The vanilla is also about how you get to those play calls. Yes. And here's the thing is, okay, Navy wants to load everybody up, then spread the field and try to run inside zone, and run RPOs off of it if they want to load up and just do something to say, hey, look, this is what that team does. For those asking where Ryan is driving home. Ryan covered the game today, so he's on his way home. He was in
Baltimore.
He was in Baltimore at the game today, so he is driving home now. So, those are the things. Is like, so yeah, there's definitely some things that I look at with Coach Reese and say, man, you need to do a better job here. And I hope, guys, my hope is that this game is the thing that drops you, that kind of says, hey guys, look, we've got to get this thing figured out. Right, we got to get this thing figured out, and we've got to make sure that if we get into a game where a team we play can take duo away, we've got answers. And hopefully, it's the wake up call in that regard. But
I mean,
see, the best coaches don't need to struggle to know that you got to have something in your back pocket.
Absolutely.
But if it's the thing that wakes you up, then it's the thing that wakes you up. So yeah, Alabama, Ole Miss being Ole Miss, they fumbled the ball, let Alabama get it, and Alabama just scored to make it 17-4.
They fumbled in the 25-yard line. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Do you guys think? I don't want to say it like that. As far as Tommy, and Vince, you pointed out, you can see in the first series, something had changed from the first half. Is the quarterback position, does he view that position as limited, or does it limit him? Do you think he feels that limits him in what he wants to do or what he wants to call? Because I just don't understand. He gives him opportunities. He had opportunities to make plays. There were plays there in the second half. But is the concept of let's not just make the mistake. Is that because of if he had Bryce Young, would he be taking his foot off the gas in that situation?
No, I don't think Tommy would. I think the head coach would.
Okay.
Would be the one to step in. Yes, because I don't think that's my thing. I don't think Tommy took his foot off the gas in the second half. I think
Tommy was trying to go for deep shots, but they weren't
right.
They weren't being
executed, and right. And some of them weren't good calls. Like, give me a. Go ahead, Vince. Sorry, man.
I was just gonna say, I wish I could have seen a lot of the camera angles that we saw. Number one, they were late getting back a couple of times. Didn't even see some of the we didn't even see the QB sneak that they had. Right. I have no idea if it was actually the quarterback or whether it was Mitchell Evans.
Mitchell Evans. It's Mitchell Evans.
We didn't even see it. So there were a lot of things that led to me not wondering what it looked like downfield when Drew took a couple of those sacks in the second half. It felt like they were going for the home run. I have a feeling guys were open. I don't know that for sure without seeing the all 22. So I'm going to count on Brian for that one. But it felt like Tommy was going for the jugular on numerous occasions, but they just didn't execute it and they weren't. But at some point, you've got to be like, okay, that's not working. There's some other things that we need.
Give me a screen. Give me Yes, that's exactly. My frustration. Right. Exactly.
And I don't feel as like an offensive coordinator when you see your guys consistently beating their guys, you're like, we just got to keep going back to it. We got to get just throw it. But at you got to be like, look, we're not executing it, and that's tough.
You got to say he's not throwing it. He's not going to throw it, and so I've got to do this. Right.
Yes.
That was kind of my frustration. Right. Yeah. That was more my frustration with the second half game plan. I don't think that it was so much that Coach Reese was lost the killer instinct as much as you've got to be able to adjust quicker to what your kid's not doing. And you can't keep calling stuff like I've talked to coaches before after games and they'll be like, man, we just, this play kept being open. And then after a while, it's like, bro, you keep telling me that you keep calling this play and they're not executing it. And after a while, you're like, brother, they're just not going to execute that play. Stop calling it. You know, I know it's frustrating as a coach because schematically it's there.
Absolutely. Yes.
But but the other thing too is you needed to counter what Navy was doing differently, to your point. You know, where Drew doesn't have a decision to make. Dude, we're running this play right here. This is what we're calling. You know, we're calling this particular play. We're going to run this cross. You're going to hit the cross. Or, hey, here's a thought. If they're bringing 9 in the box, you know what they can't do? Cover deep. Right. Hit your third step and just let it go to Braden, or let it go to Jaden, or let it go to Dion, or let it go to whoever you have. Because here's the reality. Every single dude you have on scholarship at wide receiver, including Matt Salerno, is better than the Navy dude that's lined up across from him.
Absolutely.
So don't call concepts. It's okay to just say, dude, we're just going to run a freaking screen here. I'm just running a wheel route to Chris Tyree right now, or even Audric Estimate, because they may be less apt to see it to Audric or Logan than Chris Tyree. They may be like thinking if Tyree's in there, like, hey, it's 25's in there. Let's be on the lookout for this. Yeah. Or not if Logan Diggs is in the game or if Audric's in the game, right? Especially Logan, because we saw early in the game, they beat a blitz with a little angle route to Audric, and he takes it and he goes 30 yards for a touchdown. And this is a frustration with Coach Reese, who, again, I think it's a very smart X's and O's guy, but part of being a good play caller is being willing to say, let's go back to that. It's okay to go back to that. He did it on the third down stuff. He went back to that same concept to get Dion open, but there's this other stuff. You're like, dude, they haven't taken that away yet. Right? So there's no reason for you to take it away because they haven't taken it away. The second half, when you've got teams loading the box, you know what is great for you is to have running backs that can make plays with the ball in space, and you've got a bunch of them. And that's my frustration. So yes, there was stuff there
that way, dude.
Right. There was stuff there that Drew needs to hit early, but there was also some stuff that Coach Reese needed to get to where Drew didn't have to think. It's just hit your third step and throw it to Braden. What play are we running, Coach? We're running, something, throw it to Braden. That's what we're running. You know what I mean? Because you got to give some kind of call to set the protection and the alignment, and then just throw it to Braden. What calls that?
Sometimes it's that
the
easy.
play calls throw it to Braden. That's what the play call is, right?
Sometimes
we're running a screen. We're running a tunnel. Braden's been great. Let's let them come upfield because Navy was coming hard. Drop back, and then dump a little tunnel screen, middle screen right behind him to Audric. And go.
So basically, listening to you guys, of course, I have to look at this from a basketball standpoint. So Navy basically came into the game with a game plan because they knew this is the best way to go against them. Say I'm not a good outside shooting team, and you go zone. But for some reason on this day in the first half, I'm hot. Right? And Navy basically said, okay, they're hot, but we're not going away from game plan. We're going to keep bringing pressure.
Sean, they actually doubled down. They got more aggressive.
Come back. Say it again.
I said they actually doubled down. They got more aggressive in the second
more
half.
Aggressive. Right. They got more aggressive because they figured, you know what? They're not going to hit all of these that they're hitting. Eventually, we're going to get to him and make some plays. And that's pretty much what happened. And it goes back to what you guys have been saying. There was nothing in the game plan to counter them slanting and overload blitzing. There were no running back screens. There were no quick running backs out to the flat throws. There was
or
nothing
just catch it, drop, and throw it deep.
Right. It was just simple. We're going to go deep and then bring somebody coming across. They never did anything to force them to change their game plan.
Nope.
They just depended on making the plays that they made in the first half in the second half. And when they didn't make those plays, they didn't have anything else to go to. So, you can actually go inside against a zone. You don't have to just shoot threes. There are pockets inside to get points. And I think offensively, you didn't have to keep doing the same thing you did in the first half. There were other pockets and other things you could go to be the run or pass against what they were doing to be successful. And I think that's really what you guys are questioning about what they didn't do in the second half offensively.
Right. It's just that thing where it's about making adjustments. Like what we have seen is when this offense can kind of come out and establish and exert its will on its opponent, it can't be stopped.
Yeah.
Right. Running the football. But what we saw in this game, guys, is that they were able to, in my opinion, kind of come out and say, we're gonna stop you from doing what you do best.
Yeah.
And eventually you're just not gonna keep beating us throwing the football. Or as we've said to other people about other things, is like, we're gonna make you beat us with somebody else. Navy was dead set. If we lose 100-0, I promise you we're not gonna lose 100-0 by giving up 200 rushing yards. Promise you that. Right. And that was their thing. We're gonna live or die by how we play Drew Pine.
Yep.
And Notre Dame's got to be able to say, okay, here's kind of where we are, and we've got to be able to have some answers to that.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be the key for me.
Yeah.
Is you've got to have some answers. And when teams kind of figure out this offense, and this is I think where Vince is kind of coming from, we haven't shown this coaching staff really with any sort of regularity at all, like nothing even close to that, have counter punches.
Right.
And
that's disappointing. And I
thought
we were on the right. I thought we were on the right track last week with the game plan, going against tendency and doing all of those different things. Like that was great. It was awesome. And Sean made a point in the pregame show today. People were being hyperbolic, I think, maybe not, saying that, Tommy Rees was saving all of his bullets for the big games. I think that sounds ridiculous, but at the same time, look at the facts that we have laid out in front of us. I'm just saying.
No, it's just sorry. It's just there's a certain political figure that every time he would do something and people didn't like it, they'd say, no, he's just playing 4D chess. Wait for the next move. And it's like the next move never came. You know what I'm talking about? And it's like, no, guys, that's just who he is, right? Like this isn't 4D chess. This isn't like saving up all. This is who they are. I mean, that's just, and a game like this, it kind of shows it, unless it's like, no, we were willing to almost lose to Navy because we want to save all these plays for USC. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it's hard to.
I mean, again, this is the team that brought out the tight end sneak against UNLV. Right. So, it'd be great if that were true, but that's just not.
I'll say this. Go ahead. You know what this game showed? Because you guys listening to you both of you have taught me something today, and my eyes have been open.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if that's good or bad. Or
I know. I was like,
fantastic or what.
No. And if the fan base is listening to you guys, they can pretty much put they can ease their emotions, because they've learned today that this team has potential to play at a certain level, and they have potential to coach at a certain level. We have yet to see that in totality. Will we see that in totality?
We've yet to see that in totality outside of one game. And that was last week when they blew out the number 4 team in the country. That's the frustrating thing, Sean. Because I do think that they did all the things we're talking about today, they did last week. That's the frustrating part.
Yeah.
They were always one step ahead of Clemson last week.
Yeah, but
constantly one step ahead of Clemson last week. So you never had to counterpunch against Clemson because you were always one step ahead of them.
I agree.
And so that's the frustrating thing.
That they were pretty much given 14 points by special teams and an interception.
Yeah, but see, to me, that's not given. That's not given because the reason I get what you're saying, but to me, Notre Dame has blocked 7 punts this year. That's not fluky. That's who this team is.
I agree.
But like to me, I mean, I'll say this: like if it wasn't for the block punts and the pick six, they probably win that game 21-0 or 24-3. Like it was dominant no matter what, right? It was a 21-point whooping no matter what. So I'm not going to try to downplay last week because of this. Last week showed what this team is capable of. The first half of this game showed what this team is capable of. The Ohio State game for 2.5 quarters showed what this team is capable of. The North Carolina game for 2.5 quarters shows what this team is capable of. What we learned about this football team through 10 games is this. You can say whatever you want about talent, and I'll say outside of quarterback, you're just dead wrong about what you think this talent level is if you think it's not really good. And what we've seen is this team, when they play their game and the coaching is on point, can play with anyone except maybe Georgia, just because it's a unique matchup that doesn't fit. Notre Dame kind of plays into what Georgia wants. But what it also shows is when this team is not playing its game, it can lose to Stanford and Marshall and almost lose to Navy. There is not a team in this country that I have seen that has greater highs and deeper lows than what we've seen from Notre Dame. And that's the thing that Coach Freeman's got to fix. But here's why I'm actually encouraged by this, fellas, because that's fixable much easier and quicker than when you realize, you know what, fellas, we just don't have the players. And there's not enough we can do in the portal to fix this. There's one portal thing they need to do to really fix this team. That's it. Yeah, I'd like to see another receiver for depth, and it'd be nice to get maybe a defensive end for depth and all that. That's all fine. But there's one position where this team just has to get a whole lot better from a player standpoint, and that's quarterback, whether the light goes on for Drew or the light goes on for Buckner or they go to the portal. That's the one position right now where Notre Dame is way behind the other top teams in the country. And this has been true for a long time. It's even more so true now because your starter got hurt. And it's every year. It's 2018 playoff. It's Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, Tua, and Ian Book. 2020 playoff. It's Mac Jones. And who was the other team in the playoffs in 2020? It was obviously Mac Jones. Oh, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, and then Ian Book. This year, it's Bryce Young and Jaden Daniels. I mean, guys are good players. Some are great players. CJ Stroud, and then what Notre Dame has. But outside of that, that's all fixable, right? That's my point. If you're like, dude, we're not good enough at running back, we're not good enough at linebacker, we're not good enough at receiver, we're not good enough at corner, we're not good enough on D-line, we're not good enough here, y'all can't fix that in this offseason. They're a position away and figuring some stuff out coaching-wise away from this team being really good, and that's why last week was so enlightening, because it wasn't a fluky game. It was a beatdown from start to finish. And we've seen what the special teams can do when you have consistency in message and you have a coach that knows how to get his kids ready to play at a high level week after week after week. And that's the encouraging thing, but that's what the challenge is for Coach Freeman is you got to figure out how to get this more and get rid of this. Because you want to know what makes Georgia so good is when they have their downs, it's very rare that they're down here. Very rare. South Carolina 2019, right? Like it's very rare. It's like once every 3-4 years. They always get those things. They always end up winning. I mean, they beat Missouri. Missouri's a talented team. They're not Marshall. They're not Stanford. Mm-hmm. And so it's about how do you figure out how to keep them here? Brian Kelly was great about figuring out how to keep his team here.
Yep.
Right? And they never had this, but they never had that. They were just always here. Marcus Freeman's been here and here. They're never here. And I'm okay with that. I want him to figure out how to keep this team here. And if he can do that, that's the thing that has me excited because they're really not that far away. And everything that can be that needs to be fixed can be fixed in an off season. We saw it at LSU in 2018 to 2019, right? Now we've seen it all. We've seen it plenty of times. We see what it can do, and he's just got to figure that out.
Yeah, the point I was getting to, what you guys said that stuck out to me was not to poo-poo Clemson. I don't think the offense was great against Clemson. I think they did what they had to do to win the game, but they left points on the field. And they left points on the field consistently every game this year.
Sure.
That's been the common thread offensively. So when I say there's inconsistency there, at some point, you get to a point where you're like, yo, it's week 11. This might just be an inconsistent team. What stood out to me, what you said, which I think is going to make the difference. I don't think Notre Dame is without athletes. I know they have athletes. I know they have players. But when you tell me Benjamin Morrison moves different than what we've seen and what we have, when you tell me Jalen Sneed moves different than what we've seen and what we have, that's
than
going
Maris.
to be a huge that's going to be a huge contributor
Right.
to things changing along with
Yeah.
the coach. So you can have athletes and then go get another level of athlete.
Oh, 100%.
Different. And I think that's what hit me today. It's like, you know what? We have athletes, but the athletes we have, if we're being honest, if they would just be consistent, they probably could get to this level. I'm not sure that they could get to national championship level, but they could compete with the talent they have.
That's where we somewhat disagree.
You have to include the quarterbacks. You can't.
Sure.
You just can't take away the quarterback.
Sure.
You have to include that.
Well, see, that was going to kind of be my caveat. That is the position where right now they're just not there.
Yeah,
they're just not there. Right.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, Sean, is I do feel like, especially this year, that this team, when they play, like the Clemson, you said there's points left on the board. I guess I'm going to somewhat push back on that, because not maximizing every single point against Clemson is not – that's going to happen. I mean, you're never going to go out against a team like Clemson and score every single time you have the ball. And I'm being hyperbolic in my response to you. My whole point is that I'm not going to take away from what the offense did, because I really feel like what they did, what they needed to do, was not just because of the lack of talent. It was also the conditions. I mean, Vince and I were up on the roof. I mean, Drew Pine wasn't dry. I don't care who they had. You know what I mean? So there's something to that. Like, I just don't want to dismiss what they did last week, because that's how Notre Dame's going to win, Sean, is that completeness. They're not going to win because they have a 2019 LSU offense.
Right.
They're not going to win because they have a 2009 Bama defense. They're going to win because they're not elite necessarily anywhere to those levels, but they're really, really freaking good everywhere. That's how Notre Dame has to win, right? So like 1988, Notre Dame didn't have the best offense in the country. They didn't have the best defense in the country. They might have had the best special teams in the country, but nobody was as good at all three of those areas as they were, right? Notre Dame will never be as good as LSU was in 2019 on offense, ever. And you know who else isn't? Like, everyone else in the history of college football is the best offense I've ever seen. Yeah. But you know what they can do? They can be way better than LSU was on defense, way better than LSU was on special teams, and be good enough on offense to say, we're going to be able to beat you. And that's exactly what happened in 2018. If the offense was just pretty good that year, they'd have had a shot to beat Clemson. Right. And that's the thing. Same thing with, if you could have taken the 2018 defense and put it on the 2020 team, maybe they have a shot to force a couple turnovers and knock off Alabama in the title game or in the semifinal. Right. You get what I'm saying? So like, that's my whole thing is Notre Dame has had teams that were championship level offensively, championship level defensively. They have one right now that's championship level special teams wise. What they've never been able to do is put all three of those together.
Right.
And that's where this program is missing, Sean. And that's where you and I agree. My only point is I think there's still too much conversation about they're not good enough here, they're not good enough there. And I still feel like the coaching is not where it needs to be at some key spots. And it has to get better. And so those are going to be the things that Coach Freeman has to figure out, because the margin for error at Notre Dame is smaller. I've never said it's not. I've never said it's just as easy to recruit at Notre Dame as it is at Bama. I've never said that. What I have said, and what Sean and Vince agree with, I know, is it is harder, but it can be done if you're willing to hire the right people and put in the work as the head coach. The head coach is there for that. And you've taken the recruiting operation with Chad Bowden and those guys a long way. They've got the number 3 class in the country, and they're not done yet, right? But now there's some areas where you're like, but yeah, this isn't where it needs to be, Sean, and that's where you're spot on. And so once you threw in that you have to include the quarterback, you took away my rebuttal, because you're absolutely right. That's not a position where – because you can't ask Drew Pine to be the North Carolina version of Drew Pine against Georgia. It's just not happening. It's just not fair to him. You know, you're asking him to do something that he can't do, and that's not fair to the kid. Right? You know who else can't do it? Who else can't do that against Georgia? Every other backup quarterback in America. Right? I mean, that's what Drew is. And he's being put in positions, and this is my point to kind of what Vince is saying. He is your backup quarterback. You know he struggles with these things. So stop asking him to do that.
Yeah.
It's real simple to just say, bruh, listen, Drew, the next time we see this, we're checking to this. I don't care what everybody else does. You don't actually need a pass protection. This is what you're doing. You make a face at Braden. You kind of give him a little signal. You catch the ball. You take three quick drops, and you just throw it deep to Braden. There's no read, bruh. We're going to call this play. Ian Book on that play against USC had no read.
Yeah.
Right, because what was Ian's? This is, you compare Drew to Ian. Ian was not good at reading defenses. He wasn't. But here's what Ian was good at. When you would just tell Ian, dude, this is where you're throwing the ball, Ian was money. Right? Hey, you figure out a way to get that ball to Tony Jones. That was not an easy throw the way that USC was coming at him.
Right.
Right? But he got it done. And I think Drew can do that if you make it easy for him. Dude, you got one read. Throw this ball here. That's it.
Yeah.
That's where you can help him a little bit. But that's not going to make you a champion this year. You're not.
And I think what we tell when we talk about these games, I think sometimes people take us critiquing a player, no one in particular, but just any player, as a negative. I think all three of us critique guys because we know when they don't play to their capabilities, they're better. That's why we say what we say.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was no shock to me the way J.D. Bertrand played the two previous games, because he showed me last year he could play at that level.
Right.
That's
it wasn't
not
a fluky 2 games in a row, right?
No. So now early in the season, we're wondering, what's going on? Like, where's that other guy at that we saw consistently play? Kaiser was the same way last year for most of the year. So that, that's why I said, I think the fan base can kind of ease into understanding who this team is right now.
Yeah.
Instead of expecting like this having this super high expectation. Just understand, like you said, Brian, they have to win this way this year. This is who they are. They have a backup quarterback. You know his struggles. They have a defense. You know the areas that they might struggle with defensively. The offensive line, the run game. It seems like if they step out of duo and some other things they're comfortable in, Vince has pointed out, they're not able to run the ball as effectively. Okay, It's week 11. That's all I'm saying. It's week 11. Like, at this point, most teams are who they are. Yeah. And if there's going to be a next step, it's probably going to come in preparation for the bowl game. Can they play better against Boston College? Yeah. Can they play better against USC? Can they return to the Clemson form and North Carolina form? Yeah, because we've seen that level.
They probably will.
But is there a level above that? That's the thing where I'm like, okay.
Right. And
it could
and that's
happen.
Why we said this week, like, I don't want to play Georgia this year. It's a bad matchup for this Notre Dame team. It is. Now, depending on who they have a quarterback next year, I might change my mind on that. Yeah. Right. And that's how I feel, because I do think this team is better than they're given credit for. And we'll kind of get into some of the big picture stuff in the offseason. But at the end of the day, fellas, is what I do like about this team is they did show growth today in this regard, because second week of the season, they lose this game. First, second Saturday of October, they lose this game. They do. Today they didn't. Right. And that's exactly my point, right? Second week of the season, that's when they played Marshall. Yeah. Early to October, that's when they played Stanford. Yeah. So they have seen growth. And we're starting to see, okay, they got dudes that can go out and make plays, especially in the younger classes. And just keep building on that. Right. And we're going to be critical. And today was a bummer. Today ticked me off. But, there is things to learn out of this. If you can't learn from a game like this, then you need to be doing something different with your career. They will learn from this. I just hope that they learn and instruct the right lessons. I would say cut up some effort. This is what I would always do when I play a true option team as a defensive coordinator. Give me a cut up of effort plays, good and bad. Mm-hmm. Right? Give me bad effort plays. Give me good effort plays. I don't care about the scheme. And then that's what we're watching in film tomorrow. That's it. When we talk about you don't waste 2 hours watching film, breaking down what your assignment should have been, because it doesn't matter. Like Vince said, it doesn't matter. Give me effort stuff so I can embarrass some dudes and give dudes some praise to make. Because, look, And shame is a good tool for a football coach if used correctly. Shame where you yell at a kid in front of his mom and dad or in front of his girlfriend and you just trying to embarrass him. That's not no. Getting a guy in front of his teammates and say, what is that? You're a scholarship football player at the University of Notre Dame. You're a guy that I depend on, and you're going to do that? I have no problem with that. Because if that guy won't respond to that, then he should not be playing for you. That's the kind of shame that I like, that I think can work. Because you're going to challenge a guy's, okay, where's your heart? Right? Where's your mindset? Are you okay with this? Yeah. And if you call out Maris on some plays, and if Maris is the kid that I think he is, he's going to come out next week and he's going to have about 13 tackles against Boston College, if he's the guy that I think he is. And if he doesn't respond to it, then maybe it's time to make a move to Jalen Sneed or Prince Colley. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what I'd like to see, fellas, coming out of this game, because they got the W, right? They got the W. And Vince, you said it, man, this is such a weird team to evaluate. It really is.
It is.
They just do such weird stuff, and you just, we're pissed off and frustrated, but I don't want to make this too much of a macro thing. I really don't, except for the fact that this is still a team that has some maturity issues in that they just can't stay focused all the time,
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to have to learn.
And the coaching staff is going to have to learn how to keep them focused and get that maturity level up. I mean, that's coaching, and that's what these guys need to learn as a staff too. So, I mean, that is absolutely part of it, and I think you're absolutely right. This team loses this game if it's earlier in the season, because we saw that happen already. So you do have to take that positive spin on it, and that they did win. Now, a win is not just a win, as Sean pointed out, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I sent you guys a text about that, and that I agree that is a problem. Like, I don't want my quarterback saying that, right? But at the same time, that is a good thing that they won the game, and we can nitpick. It's just like I said when they lost to Stanford, when they lost to Marshall. I didn't think that the valleys were going to be so low with Marcus Freeman. I thought we would be having these kind of discussions. Nitpicking some of this, not nitpicking, but talking about the negatives, but with a win under their belt. Like, these are the conversations I thought we were going to have more often. Not, I can't believe they just lost to Marshall and Stanford. It was, hey, there's a lot of stuff they can clean up, but they got the win.
And I could have even lived with one of those, Vince.
Sure.
I could have lived with one of those.
Sure.
Right?
Preferably the earlier one.
If they would have lost to Marshall and beat Stanford and still be sitting where they are right now at 8-2, I'd feel so much different about this football team.
Yes.
And I'd feel so much better about today. Yeah. But next week's another opportunity, fellas, and we're not done yet, because we have a bunch of super chats we're going to get to here. But look, a win is a win in the record book. And in the record book, I would much rather get this kind of win than a loss. Yeah. And that's the thing is, but the players got to understand that a win is not a win in regard to the process. And that's where it comes down to. A win is a win when we're talking about the result. What's your record? But when you're talking about trying to get this, and Sean, this is kind of where you were coming from earlier, is what's the goal here? What's the objective here? Is the objective to have another 48 game win streak against Navy? Or is your objective to win championships? Because you won a bunch of those during that 48-game win streak against Navy. The objective is to win championships. And today you did not take a step towards that. You took a step away from that. And that's what has to be corrected and adjusted. But here's the great thing about it. Next week against Boston College, you get another shot to take a step forward again. And we'll see what they do. And I'm encouraged to see that. And it's going to be a fun offseason. I'll say that. Right. So we've talked about some stuff off the air that we'll eventually get into that you're like, this is going to be a real fun off season.
But this honestly, this is where it gets fun, guys. Mm-hmm. This is where it gets fun.
It's the build.
You see this team get better. You see a win like Clemson. Hopefully they sweep November, and hopefully they get a win in the bowl game. But at the same time, you start to see glimpses of the future. You start to see guys like Benjamin Morrison. You start to see guys like Snead. For sure. You're like, or you see a kid like Gabriel Rubio make plays, 1 or 2 plays. Sure. He's going to get better with each rep, and he's going to be better by the time he gets through the spring and into the fall. and you start to see Prince Colley coming on. He's making plays, and you start to say, okay, all right, yeah, 9-3, bowl win. I fully expect 11 wins next year with a chance at a college football playoff berth. Going back to what you said, if certain things are handled, certain positions are handled a certain way, either via transfer or recruiting, let's say, the sky's the limit. Yeah. I think it is this is not a doom or gloom. I hope fans aren't totally just in a place.
No, it's not doom and gloom because look, if I thought this, guys, if we thought this team is who they are and this is, then we'd be like, hey, you know what? Because then a win would be a win. If we were talking about we're Purdue, and I'd be like, hey guys, we got the W. We're 7-3. Right. This is good. Right. Chill. Right. We're fine. That's the whole thing. And look, I love Marcus Freeman as the head coach. I think he's going to do great things at Notre Dame. But here's the deal: the thing I promised the day that Brian Kelly left, and then I promised again the day that Marcus Freeman was going to be hired. I don't like Brian Kelly. I never hid that fact. I do like Marcus Freeman. But my beef with Brian Kelly personally has nothing to do with the standard I held him to as the head football coach. And the fact that I like Marcus Freeman personally and think he's a great guy is not going to affect the standard of which I hold the head coach of Notre Dame or the Notre Dame football team, which is championships. And last week they played like a team that's a lot closer than people realize. Today, that team is still the same team. That was not a fluky game because we've seen it every time they've played someone good this year.
Right.
But this team's got a lot of growing up to do. And that's the encouraging thing. That's the encouraging thing is, today stunk a little bit in some ways, but they got the W and they get another shot to get back at it next week. And we're going to hold Coach Freeman to the same standard. And you know what? You know who else is going to hold him to that standard? He is. Like Marcus Freeman's not going to sit in this office freaking Driscoll being mad, not giving us credit for a win. No. If Marcus Freeman's the guy that I think he is, we're not pissed enough. I really think I've learned, what I feel now after 11 weeks is what Marcus Freeman says publicly is not what Marcus Freeman thinks privately. That's the one thing I feel like I've learned, you know, and I guarantee you he is not going to be someone you want to be sitting next to on the plane ride home. And that's how I think. And because I do think he's process oriented. I do. Mm-hmm. And they'll get this thing figured out. I do think that. But next week's a crack to get at that. And I'll say this before we move on to the super chats. Maybe Scott Satterfield should have kept his mouth shut during the week of preparation this week because they're losing us.
Smacked around a little bit.
24-10 right now. Maybe he should have shut his pie hole a little bit. But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, that's going to do it for this portion of the post-game show. We are going to have some super chats coming up in a minute. But before we get there, folks, everybody, I'd like for you to do us a favor. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Share this podcast. Sign up or subscribe to the CFB Nation podcast so you can get that guy right there every single day, Monday to Saturday. Lucky Lefty podcast with Sean Davis and former Notre Dame quarterback Malik Zaire. They're now the Notre Dame channel on CFB Nation. And so you can check out all their shows. We've already got started rocking and rolling. I think the shows have been great. The feedback's been great so far, so we're excited about that. Check out their merch store. Sign up for the boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Now it's time to get to these super chats because we got a lot of them again today, and we appreciate y'all very much. We have 2 super chats back-to-back from Easy Money Gamblers. Can we fire Tommy Rees yet? I mean, appreciate the super chat. We don't comment on those kind of things, and no, you're not going to fire Tommy Rees right now. That's not the answer right now. Easy money, and that right now is not meant to be some sort of, but we're going to talk about it later. That's not our job. We don't fire coaches. We don't talk about firing coaches. What we'll say is this has got to get better, and it's got to get better. Next super chat from me. Can we talk about how embarrassing this program is? No, we cannot because it's not. No, we appreciate the super chats, but those are conversations we're going to move on from, guys. But we do appreciate the super chats. Matt Sokolowski says, am I missing something? Thank you for the super chat, Matt. Am I missing something? Why are we calling long developing pass plays when Navy is bringing 7 guys, quick slants, and RB slip out would be open? Yeah, I mean, a lot of these super chats were made beforehand, right before we got to those things. So, but no, you're right, and that's the thing. Guys, we've got to this team has got to find ways to see this stuff and react. Because you guys know this, teams are going to throw stuff at you that you didn't prepare for. It happens
absolutely. Well,
yeah,
he's right. That happens to anybody. Yeah, I'll just finish his sentence for him. That absolutely happens to everybody. And he's back.
Yeah, y'all. It's like Stream Rose. Nope, we're done with you. You're gone. Sorry.
Oh, that's great.
Go ahead, Vince. You were going to.
No, I was literally finishing your. I was finishing your sentence for you. So yeah,
go for it. Please
teams are 100% going to throw things at you that you're not expecting. You have to be able to adapt and adjust and dip into the playbook and do different things. And we talked about this earlier about, yes, going deep was wide open the whole game. The whole game. And I'm sure Tommy Rees is sitting up in the press box and he's seeing Braden Lindsey. He's seeing him get open, and he's seeing Braden Thomas get open, and he's seeing, everybody get open, but your quarterback wasn't pulling the trigger. For whatever reason, he wasn't pulling the trigger. You have to adjust. You have to adjust. And he didn't. And that's the problem.
Can't keep calling the same stuff and get pissed off your quarterback doesn't execute it.
Correct.
Find something he can execute. Find something he's comfortable with. Yeah, agree. And that's not always easy. Look, there's a lot of things that we say here that sound easy. But as coaches, we also know that it's not as easy as it sounds, but it's your job. I mean, that's what you got to find answers to. That's what you get paid for.
Right.
I ain't afraid of no goats. Still love this name. Just giving us a go Irish. Appreciate you very, very much. And absolutely.
Love it.
Charlie Weiss's last belt loop with a super chat. Thank you, sir. Wow, I don't know where to start. Back-to-back big games. Did this kill Notre Dame overall motivation? I was like, wow, Pine is awesome, then just fell apart. This team is very, very weird. I think it is a weird team. I don't think it was a motivation issue because of how well they came out.
Yeah.
Look, I think the problems in the first half were pure game plan. The only reason that game was close in the first half is because I thought the defensive game plan was bad. That's it. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just me. Did any point in time you guys felt in the first half that this team came out flat or wasn't ready to play or wasn't physical?
Nope.
No.
So I actually think that's what made the second half so frustrating, because at halftime, I'm like, they turned a corner, right? Navy starts to claw back, and what happens? Defense steps up and makes a couple stops, and the offense capitalizes on it and puts them both in the end zone, right? Like, that's good team football. You had some mistakes and you did this and that, but the defense rallied, make a couple stops. Clarence makes a great play. Notre Dame makes a stop. The offense puts it in the end zone, right? You make another stop, you get the ball back, you put it in the end zone, ball game's over. That sequence of events is what won them the game, right? So I don't think that it was like, I don't think they hit an emotional wall because of the back-to-back big games. I just think this is still a team that struggles to have the necessary focus. And I think, you know what it is, guys, and we didn't say this. You know what I think happened today is exactly what we talked about earlier in the week. This team has to show that they can handle success.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And they got that 35-13 lead, and they said, all right, cool.
Game over, baby. We got this.
And it goes back to what Sean said. I think it was Sean said this, because you both made great points in the show. Y'all don't know Navy. You should. But y'all don't know Navy. You think 35-13 is okay? It's time to let up? Nope. They're not done. They're not going to quit. And
you don't want them to quit.
Right. No.
You don't want them to quit.
The DC doubled down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like man, come all night.
To Vince's point, if Notre Dame ever plays Navy, Air Force, or Army, and they pull a USC second half of 2017, I got much bigger concerns than this football game. I got these are the cats that are fighting for our freedom in a couple years. Like, a right guard for Notre Dame can make them quit. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is problematic. You got to understand who you're playing. And it's not even just about, they're smart and they're disciplined. These cats chose a path that most of us don't have the courage to go down.
Absolutely.
And I'll say that, and I'll say that about myself more than anything else. I couldn't fight in a war. It's part of the reason I didn't choose to go the military route. I'm from Norfolk, Virginia. I had recruiters in my house trying to get me to come play there and join the Navy, join the Navy and all that kind of stuff. Of course I did. I'm from freaking Norfolk, Virginia. But I was like, I don't like getting yelled at. I don't like people telling me what to do, and I don't think I'm someone who could see myself fighting in a war. That was my thing. These cats do that. They're not just getting a great education and going to West Point and all that and becoming officers. These cats are going to be, if we ever get into another conflict overseas or here, These are the cats that are going to be picking up the guns, and as we're all running away from the fire, they're running to it. Right? When we're all running away and trying to find, a place to kind of get away from the bad things that are happening, they're the ones going towards the front line and going to the fight. That's who you played today. They're not going to quit. You know what I mean? It's like y'all ever see the movie Battle Los Angeles? You ever see that movie? It's pretty good.
No, I've never seen it.
It's an alien movie. You have to watch it. It's an alien movie, but it's a bunch of Marines fighting against, trying to save Los Angeles. And one of the things they say is their unit, their motto is retreat hell. And at some point in time, somebody says, "What does that mean?" He goes, "Well, and I guess World War I or World War II, the Marines showed up and they called a retreat, and the guy says, 'Retreat hell, we just got here.'" You know what I mean? Like, that's who, because a lot of guys that play for the Naval Academy, because there's no Marine football team, a lot of the cats from the Navy that play for Navy actually go when they're done into the Marines. They're actually future Marines. That's who you played today. You know what I mean? Like, they're not quitting because the right guard outweighs them by 40 pounds. You know what I mean? Because they're down 35-13. And it was a lesson for Notre Dame, and a lesson that I think they're going to win from. And here's the thing we can all agree on, fellas: win is a win or whatever. I would rather learn that lesson after a win than learn that lesson after a loss. There's no doubt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I went on that little rant too, because it is Veterans, kind of Veterans Day this weekend. And that's who those cats are. It's a special breed of kids on the other sideline, which is why Notre Dame has the reverence for that institution when they play them. So, yeah. And I'll tell you what, too, Notre Dame has a lot of freshmen and sophomores on this football team. They will remember this next year in Ireland, meaning not like,
yes.
We're going to remember that, but like they're going to know, hey, we get up on them next year, fellas. It's not it's not slow your roll. You know what I mean? So,
like you can't I'm sure if we search the record books, we might find a couple of games where Navy kind of just gave up. But for the most part, you can't take their heart.
Mm-hmm.
You're not taking their hearts, man. They do so much. On a day-to-day basis that has absolutely nothing to do with football.
This is the fun part for them.
Right.
This is the easy part of their week.
Oh,
Exactly.
100%. Absolutely.
So, nah. You're right, man. They're a fun team to watch from just playing hard. They play extremely hard, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely hard.
Yep. All right. Let's get to our next questions. Good comments and stuff so far. I mean, we feel your all's pain. David Hess, thank you very much. And this is perfect timing. Service Academies always play tough. I'm going to have the memory of a goldfish today, onward Notre Dame. And obviously goldfish have very short memories. And that's kind of the point that we talked about earlier, guys. Defensively, I'm not watching this film for that exact reason. I'm just not. Moving on. David Flagstaff with a super chat. Thank you very much. Agree with Brian. No intensity in the second half. That's what the most disappointing thing for me today was. It wasn't play calling. It wasn't Drew it was the fact that this team just showed no, like, who's going to step up and be that dude? And why is it a freshman corner? Like that was kind of the frustrating thing for me was who's that dude today that's going to step up and say enough of this? And that was frustrating. Speaking of frustrating, Steve with a super chat. Thank you, Steve. So frustrating, but if Freeman learns to keep his foot on the gas from this win, I'll take it. Amen. Amen. Nick Gonzalez with a super chat. Do you think games like this hurt Steve A in the long run? Not getting any time. This schedule should have lined up for him to get a couple of games. It's not just Steve Angeli. It's Steve Angeli. It's Jabron Payne. It's Kane Barong. It's Tosh Baker. It's Michael Carmody. It's Pat Coogan. It's Rocco Spindler. It's Billy Schrouth. It's Emil Wagner, who could have played a couple games maybe this year in some mop-up duty. It's Tyson Ford. It's Josh Burnham. Go all down the line of guys who have not had an opportunity to play games this year because they have been unable to put teams away.
Yeah,
100%. 100%, Nick. But I would say let's not stop with Steve Angeli. Right? It's not just him, but he is obviously the most obvious. I would definitely say that. Michael S. Brian, you accused me of being too pessimistic because you are. Because I saw this game like Stanford, it wasn't. Difference, we did barely win. That's a pretty big freaking difference.
It's a huge
You know,
difference.
like they trailed Stanford the entire game. There was one series in which Notre Dame led Stanford. They went up early in the fourth quarter, and Stanford went right down the field and took the score back. This was completely different. This was not a game Notre Dame was going to lose. To Vince's point, I didn't think they were going to lose this game. It's way different than the Stanford game.
Yeah,
and you are pessimistic. I love you, and we're glad that you're here. And we have all types of. We have 1,000 people in the chat today. There's a bunch of different personalities. It's okay. You're pessimistic. Me, Vince, and Sean all have different personalities, but you are pessimistic. There's no doubt about that, and that's why you saw this game as that.
And there's a few more people in the chat that would qualify as that, but
sure, and that's okay. We love you. This isn't a Homer site. This isn't a negative Nancy site. This is for Notre Dame fans of all persuasions, as long as you can treat people with respect. And I've never seen Michael S. not treat people with respect, which is why we're okay with his pessimism.
I did put somebody in a 5-minute timeout for calling us Pollyannas, though.
We got called Pollyannas? Oh, that's hilarious.
I was like, sorry. That's
yeah.
I mean, I got to draw the line.
See, he's lucky because this Pollyanna would have put him in a lot more than a 5-minute timeout. I can promise you that.
Keep an eye out. I'm waiting.
Yeah. Joe Papiti, I've never seen a team totally check out the way that Notre Dame did today. They scored those points at the end of the half and just mailed it in. I mean, we're seeing a lot of comments like that, guys. And it was very obvious. The difference in intensity from half 2 to half 1.
Yeah.
And that's a leadership on the team thing, but that's also a coaching thing, fellas, because whatever you said or did, you allowed that that intensity, you allowed that to go away in the second half. Go ahead, Vince.
And it felt like at the end of the first half that Marcus Freeman, Tommy Rees, et cetera, were going for the jugular. Like it felt that way. And it felt good the way they were taking timeouts, the way that they were, went down and scored, all of that. It was just like, yes, they're picking up where they left off in the Clemson week, where they went for the jugular with that pass to Michael Mayer, right? It's like they're picking up where they left off. And it's like they went into the locker room and they found 65 guys from the stands and they all swapped out uniforms. And the team went up to watch the rest of the game in the stands and they put somebody else out there to play the rest of the game. It was just a completely different team. And it was frustrating.
Very frustrating. Very, 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 very frustrating. All right, let's get to the next super chat from Michael S. Why did the DBs have so many holding calls against Navy receivers? USC will kill them. Okay, first of all, this is exactly what we're talking about, Michael. Right? This team has played against Ohio State's receivers, North Carolina's receivers, Clemson's receivers. Bruh, this is kind of why you think I'm pessimistic? This right here.
Yeah.
They played bad. Guys, not every game where you play bad, like Georgia almost lost to Missouri. They curb stomped Florida and curb stomped Tennessee. You play bad one game, it doesn't mean for the rest of the year you're going to be that team, right? Like, come on. If they play like they did today, USC will hurt them. But you know what's going to be different about that game? The DBs are not going to be focused on playing the triple option. The DBs played poorly. Yeah. The best safety also did not play in this game. Your stud freshman corner didn't really get into the game until like late in the second quarter. I barely saw Benjamin Morrison in the first half.
Right.
And then he played in the second half and, did what he did. But
were you shocked they came out with Tariq and Cam to start the game?
No.
Not in this game.
Just because Tariq has seen it. Tariq has seen it. I mean, that's really it. Let him see it a little bit first. Am I surprised? Would I have done that? No. Am I surprised? No. I'm okay with it either way. For me, there's a lot of other things I guess that I was more concerned about with this game plan than that.
He looked pretty good to me first time seeing it.
Oh, no doubt. My thing is, but would he have looked that good if he was out there snap 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and not seeing it from the side? I guess is my only. I don't know. I don't know the answer. He may have. Yeah. I mean, knowing Benjamin Morrison, he'd have been just fine. You know what I mean? But and it's also part of the game plan too, Sean, is because they were just going to use those corners to kind of cover and funnel early on. So Patrick Barnes with a super chat. Is it just me? It seems like if we had better QB player receivers, we'd be balling out this year. It's not just you, dude. I mean, it's definitely not just you. The
receivers.
We've been saying this for how long?
Yeah.
Right. Lorenzo's been a problem, but as a unit, they've been getting.
But they're not really throwing the ball anymore either. Like they
Right.
have adjusted for his lack of play, and they're not really putting him on the field a whole lot. Right now, it was a little different because Tobias couldn't be out there, and so I'm sure his reps went up a little bit. They didn't ask him to do anything beyond the line of scrimmage today, which is exactly the way it should be. The rest of the guys are playing well. Just need to give them the ball.
Right. Got a super chat from Connor Patton. What was the story with Tommy and BK and JJ McCarthy's recruitment? There was really no story other than that they just thought Tyler Buchner was better, and I'm okay with it. I thought Tyler Buchner was better too. I'm looking at this. JJ McCarthy 7 of 16 for 100 yards and a touchdown against Nebraska late in the third quarter. Right, like Michigan's not winning because of JJ McCarthy.
No,
he's a good player, and if they would have taken JJ McCarthy, I'd have been fine. But I thought Tyler was a better prospect. Look, the only issue Tyler Buchner's had is just injuries and not playing.
Injuries.
If he would have played his senior year and not missed all the time he missed, we'd be having a different conversation about Tyler Buchner right now. Yep. We'd be like, man, I can't wait till that kid gets back from that injury because we know so much more about him by now. Mm-hmm. Indian Nation, Navy front seven superior than Clemson. Who knew?
Okay,
again,
it is. I think
funny,
that's a joke. Yeah, I think that's a joke. But
I was going to say, I was just going to say it was the Navy front nine. Was better than Clemson's front seven.
It was the Navy front 11 because they pretty much brought the house plus Ken Niumatalolo. They were all.
I'm not even going to bring it up, but did you guys see Michael's next super? I'm not bringing it up. I'm so tired of when things don't go well. When a coach shows the same expression on the sideline that he showed last week in a win, but because they didn't play well, it's
right.
I'm so tired. Relly Q with super chat. Thank you, Relly Q. Should the eval of Reese be separated between his OC role and QB role? He's been the QB coach since 2017. Reese has been under him. Pine has been under him for 3 years. Can we gauge his OC potential if he can't coach up a quarterback? I mean, I don't think you can separate it because he is a quarterback's coach. But then this is kind of partly why I said what I was hoping they would do in 2019 or 2020 was hire a veteran OC who coaches quarterbacks and let Tommy coach another position. I think Tommy would have benefited greatly from coaching another position. I do.
Right.
I can't tell you how much I benefited from coaching running backs my first year as a coach because I had to watch and study and prepare the game from such a different standpoint because I was a quarterback and a receiver. And I mean, pass game, learning what goes into running the football and what those kids have to see and know and do all that made me a better coach. Then coaching receivers made me a better coach. And so then when I was coaching quarterbacks, I'd be like, hey, look, this made a lot of sense as a quarterback on paper, but then you got to go teach these receivers how to do it. And like, it's not real practical. On paper, it looks really good, but it's not real practical. I think all those things are great experiences. And being able to coach other things is very, very important in my opinion.
I will double down on that. And there was a couple of years where I coached. Well, I didn't have a position to coach. I was the offensive coordinator, didn't have a position to coach. I spent all my time with the offensive line. And Coach Chris Summers, who helps us out sometimes at Irish Breakdown. So he and I coached the offensive line, and I learned so much coaching the offensive line. I mean, look, man, I'm not an offensive lineman. I was a wide receiver, a safety, or whatever, and that's what I coached when I first started coming in. I was coaching DBs, wide receivers. You coach the offensive line, it helps you understand what the offense is doing so much better. Because if your offensive line isn't executing, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. Period.
Yeah.
So I will double down on what you just said. You need to be able to coach other positions. It makes you a better coach.
And it's not universal. Steve Sarkisian's never coached anything but quarterbacks.
Sure.
But it's just, I just think, especially for young coaches, Steve Sarkisian was also a quarterback's coach for a long time before he became a coordinator. So Indy Nation says, I just witnessed the worst half of Indy football offensively I've ever seen, considering our opponent and our talent. Tell me I'm wrong. Go Irish. I mean, I'd have to go back and watch some games from 2017 or 2007 again. But 2007. Did I say 17? I meant 2007. There were some pretty awful halves of football in 2007, but I mean, it's definitely in the conversation. Guys, that second half was just on offense it was just sheer incompetence. I mean, you gained 16, 15, was Vince 13 yards of offense?
12.
12?
No. Yeah.
According to the stat side, here's the thing. And you had a 21-yard completion.
Mm-hmm.
You had a 21-yard completion to Deion Colsey in the second half, and you still had 12 yards of offense in the second half.
Yes.
Think
they
about
had
that.
negative 23 rush yards due to the sacks.
Exactly. Oh, my goodness. Really cute to add on my SC list. Would you support Marcus Freeman hiring on a dedicated quarterback coach and remove the responsibility from Tommy Reese? It feels like this position has been underdeveloped and mismanaged for quite a while.
Yeah.
Guys, listen.
Please explain this.
It's not the time for this. Number one, it's just not the time for this. You're not doing it in week 12, going into week 12. This is who they are right now. If you want to kind of discuss that in the offseason, we can discuss that in the offseason. But look, it's not going to happen. If you're going to keep Tommy Rees as the OC, he's not going to stop coaching quarterbacks. And then here's the thing: who are you going to fire?
Right.
What
only
position
have 10.
coach do you want to fire? Right?
Yeah.
Because if you go, well, you hire an analyst. Well, an analyst can't coach on the field. Hire GA. What GA are you going to hire that's a better quarterbacks coach than Tommy Rees? Right? Like, it just really, Q, I get where you're coming from. I do. But this just isn't the time or the place. You know, I mean, it's just not the time and the place to kind of have that conversation. There will be a time and a place to have that conversation. Right now, the focus is on what can they do to get Tommy Rees, the OC and quarterbacks coach, on, you know, the tools he needs to go out and smash Boston College next week. That's the focus.
Right.
And that's all Marcus Freeman should be focused on right now. You guys agree with that?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And people need to understand the vast majority of offensive coordinators out there, the vast majority are also the quarterback's coach. There are a few, you know, here and there where that's not the case, right? Chip Long was the tight ends coach at Notre Dame, but the vast majority are quarterback coaches. That's just how it works. Okay. You can't hire 1,000 assistant coaches so that everybody has a position, or you have multiple guys that's just not how it works.
In the NFL, you have an offensive line coach, an assistant offensive line coach,
an assistant,
a quality control guy that works with the offensive line coach. I mean,
that's not how it works, man. So people need to get over this. Please get over this.
Tommy's 30 years old. He's still learning as a coach. And unfortunately, he was kind of given a learn-on-the-job situation, and that probably wasn't ideal. But, you know, the hope should be right now that he gets better. He learns from this, right? I mean, like, he's 30. He needs to learn from this. That's the thing with Tommy is I hope that he has this, and I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying I hope he has a mentality of that all these things are lessons for him, you know, and that you say, okay, lesson learned, chalk that up in my notebook. And, you know, some coaches I know, they would have like coaching notebooks. And I knew guys that were very young that knew they wanted to be head coaches, and they started head coach notebooks from the moment they got into coaching. Just little lessons they learned. Hey, this coach did a great job. We went through this, and this is how the coach handled that. And this is what he said to our guys at halftime. And you just write that stuff down. And then some of it's like, hey, I went out and did this, and it didn't work at all, and this is a lesson to learn. And that's what I hope Coach Rees does. And next week he says, okay, here's what we're going to do. And, you know, because he's a little bit up in this like this too, right? Like last week, like, okay, that's the Tommy Rees we've been talking about all summer as being the really smart guy. And we saw some stuff today. Schematically today in the pass game, it was great stuff today, guys. I mean, guys were going to open the entire game, you know, but there's some other stuff that wasn't so good. So learn from it. And, you know, again, that's what we're going to focus on. We're not the go fire everybody. This guy sucked. You know, a week after you did what you did to Clemson, we're talking about firing a coach. You know, like, how about we let the next couple games play out, right? Because there was a time this year when people were talking about get freaking Zeke Correll off the field, you know?
Yeah.
Get J.D. Bertrand off the field, right?
Yeah.
Now we're like, good Lord, you struggled because you didn't have J.D. Bertrand on the field today.
Right.
You know? So
that's my first takeaway.
Go ahead, Sean.
What's the chances that as a coach in a situation like that, and I'm just asking, that you see an offense struggling or you see a quarterback struggling and you step away from what's on the paper to say, you know what, I need to get control of him. Like, let me find something that I know can get him back right instead of just continuing to go to what I have on my paper. And that's something I think that comes with maturing as a teacher. Because that's what a coach is, a teacher. And as a teacher, Vince, you know, you're in education. You have a classroom with 20 kids. There's so many different personalities, temperaments.
Absolutely.
And you have to be able to convey the message and get it across in dealing with interruptions and everything. And, you know, it's the same thing. I think maybe through an interruption into what Tommy wanted to do today, and maybe he could have done a couple of things that weren't necessarily part of the game plan that could have gone a long way to kind of like settling Drew back down. and getting him back and then going back to what he had on paper, and I think maybe, the experienced guys, like you said, he was thrown into a situation to learn on the fly. An more experienced OC might be able to say, okay,
Right.
we're going to go to this right now because this is going to settle him down and kind of bring him back. And then we'll try to get back to some of the stuff that we wanted to do, coming into the game.
Mm-hmm.
But,
that's the evolution, Sean. That's what we need to see from him.
Yeah.
Right? Some coaches aren't that way. Some coaches are in their 40s and 50s and they still have that. Well, I called a good play. I told you this. I think I've told this story before. There was one time, it was 05 as a Christopher Newport, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And we probably had more athleticism than we did the year before. But we were young and we were immature, and we did a bad coaching job. We were just doing a bad coaching job, myself included. We just all were just not doing enough to get myself included, because we weren't winning. And I remember sitting in the office late in the year, and our offensive line coach looked around the office and he's like, guys, we have to remember one thing. This is not on us. We're doing what we need to do. They're not making plays. And I was like, this guy's like 60. It's like, and I went off. Like, he tried to fight me right there in the locker, in the office. Like, I was like, you got to be effing kidding me. And I had a lot more of a mouth back then. But I was like, seriously? We're the ones getting paid to do this. Those kids in that locker room are paying to go to school here and play football. And you're going to say it's not us, it's them? Like, this is why you're in your 60s and you're coaching at a Division III school. You know what I'm saying? Like, give me a freaking break with that stuff. You got to hope that Coach Reese is not that guy. You got to hope that he's hey, I thought this was going to work. I kept going to it. I got to realize that this is part of my evolution. And I'm optimistic he's going to learn. I think he will. Look, every coach that's great needs to be supremely confident, but also have enough humility to say, I didn't do a good enough job there. I should have done it better. I should have, Sean, like you're saying, because the only way you can say I need to do this differently, you don't do something differently if you don't think the way you were doing it was incorrect. Like, if something you're doing is correct, why would you change it? Right? Like, so you hope that he's that way, and I hope that he is. Because, again, he's a very smart football guy. I think the area where Coach Reese has to continue to improve, as you guys mentioned, is as a teacher. Sean, I think you nailed it. That's where he's got to learn to improve. As a teacher. Indy Nation with a super chat. Thank you, Indy Nation. Pine hit some huge passes. Imagine if he was off. Very fortunate to win this game. This is worse than Stanford, folks. This is Navy. Go Irish. This is not worse than Stanford. Have you guys watched Stanford play this year other than playing Notre Dame?
Yeah.
First of all, no, not even the. Have you watched Stanford play this year other than when they've played Notre Dame? They suck. This is not worse than Stanford. First of all, that game was at home. They're terrible. I think Navy could beat Stanford. So it's not worse than them. It's not. Stop. Today was bad enough. We don't need to add this kind of hyperbole on it. You know what I mean? Like, just stop. Just relax. Okay? Kevin Bujaj, I hope I'm saying that right. How can we not run a Navy after what happened last week? How? Okay, a couple things. Number one, as we said during the week, Navy is a very good rushing defense. Said it during the week. They're very well coached. They use their lack of size to their advantage, and they attack and they penetrate, which is exactly what you saw today. We said this today, folks. They were holding teams to 87 rushing yards a game. They held Air Force to 130 yards below their season average on the ground. What they did today was they said, we're not big and strong enough to handle Notre Dame, so we're going to outnumber them. And we're going to try to use our quickness to our advantage. And Notre Dame did not counter schematically or coaching-wise to hurt that. That's what happened. And I don't think the line played well. It happens. Have you guys ever seen an offensive line that played great every week? Look, I'm a Denver Bronco fan. You guys know that. You guys remember how good those offensive lines they had in 87 and 88 were?
Nope.
I remember that year. Yes, you do. Shut your pie hole. You guys remember what they did to the Dolphins that year in the playoffs? They beat the Dolphins 38-3 in the playoffs. They embarrassed the Dolphins in the playoffs that year. Do you guys remember what they did about 3 or 4 weeks before against the Dolphins when they got destroyed by the Dolphins and got embarrassed by the Dolphins and they couldn't protect John Elway? They couldn't run the football. Same teams, different games, domination, got your butt kicked. you're not the same single team every time you take the football field. How does Alabama blow Georgia out in the SEC title game and get whooped in the national championship? How does Georgia get their butts kicked by Auburn in the regular season, and then a month later in the SEC title game blows Auburn out? That's football. Yeah. That's football, right? Like, you're not the same exact team every week. There is an element of survive and advance to this, right? You're going to be off some games. The great teams can have off days and learn how to win. Notre Dame is not there yet because they lost to Marshall and Stanford. Today, they were off. They had a crap game in a lot of ways, but they still won. And that's part of football, is getting the W in those instances. And so, same thing with the run game. You're not going to be great every game. And the point I made about the Dolphins was the Denver Bronco offensive line sucked against the Dolphins first time they played. They were hitting John Elway all night. The next time, they wore him out. It's part of the deal. Yeah. Happens sometimes. You just got to limit those opportunities. Indian Nation says, do you think 25 is being misused? Yes.
100%.
That's Chris Tyree.
No, he's not. He's too slow.
He's being sarcastic, I think. Slow. I think he's being sarcastic.
Okay. The little happy, smiley, happy faces there. Okay, you're right. Yes, he's being misused. Put him in the slot, move him around, put two backs in. I mean, you did it one time, and all of a sudden, oh, he's wide open for a touchdown. Oh, shocker! Like, come on.
Right.
It's just right. It's right there. It's right here.
Right.
Come on.
Yep, absolutely. Next one from Average Joe. Thank you, Average Joe, for the super chat. For 2023 transfer portal, if so, do you go for a backup or for Tyler Buckner or someone Tyler Buckner can back up? And if so, is the roster transfer or Tyler Buckner, Steve Angeli, Drew Pine? So does Drew Pine transfer? That's a lot there. Okay, so first of all, I don't know about transferring or not. I am adamant that Notre Dame needs to go out and get a transfer portal quarterback. There is not a transfer portal quarterback out there that Notre Dame could get, meaning like Bryce Young's not jumping in, CJ Stroud's not jumping in, Caleb Williams isn't jumping in, that I'm handing the starting job to.
Correct.
So he's going to have to compete.
Yes.
He's going to have to compete. And if I bring in, pick a quarterback. If I bring in Bryce Young and Tyler Buckner outplays him in the spring and outplays him in the summer and outplays him in fall camp, and then that's who my starter is, right? I mean, it's about competition. I'm not bringing in a backup quarterback. I'm bringing in a guy that can compete for the starting job and help us win every football game that we play next year. That would be my mentality if I'm the Notre Dame head coach. Now, if that guy comes in and that guy gets beat out by Tyler Buckner or Drew Pine or Steve Angeli, then that guy's my starting – whoever beat him out is my starting quarterback. But I'm not bringing anyone in to be a backup. That was my mentality this year, guys. I did not want a guy to come in and take reps away from Tyler and Drew because they needed the reps this year. Next year, because of Tyler's injury history, I think you have to bring in a guy that can start. I think you have to. Anyone disagree with that?
You cannot go and promise a starting spot to a transfer quarterback. You can't go out and make promise the world and have them come in. That's terrible for team chemistry. That's terrible for the quarterback room. It's even bad for that kid because now he's not even going to try because he was told he was going to be the starter. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the guys that Notre Dame was talking to and ended up not coming, he wanted to be named the starter before he even said he was going to come. That's why he didn't come, because Notre Dame was not willing to do that. Notre Dame still should not be willing to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I agree. No, I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. Like, there's no one out there that deserves to be given that type of security coming in. And to be honest, Brian, we talked about this during the week. You just said it. Drew Pine, the backup quarterback. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see the starter develop. Mm-hmm. And we didn't get to see him behind this offensive line at their best.
Right.
That's what you have right in front of you. You can say what you want, man. Like, for me, that's the greatest challenge that I'm going to be watching with Tommy Rees. What are you doing with the guys you have?
Right.
What about these two? Right? Drew's going to have this experience. Tyler had 3.5 games of experience or 2.5 games of experience. So moving forward, that whole first time start, first time being in the saddle, that's out of the window now.
Right.
They should be much better. Both of these guys.
Right. Sean, he's a junior. He's a junior. And he's not a junior that you inherited because you're a first-year coach.
No.
He's been with you for – here's the thing, Sean, and this is the thing that I say why I tend to be more – let's focus on the coaches before we focus on the players. Because as I've always said, don't come talk to me about what we need from a player standpoint until you can tell me as my assistant coach that you have gotten the most out of that kid.
Yeah.
When we've got the most out of that kid and you've done the best job you can and that's not good enough, then I will say, okay, we need to fix this. And this is what I've said about Notre Dame as a whole, right? Well, you need to lower admission standards. You need to do this. You need to do that. You have not maximized your potential as a program. Until you do, then we can address where we are. If don't come to me and say, hey, we need to do this change, make that change, when the reality is you're not doing what you were hired to do to the level that I'm paying you to do it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so once you do that, then we can say, okay, cool, this is where we need to go, right? And that's the reality of it. And so does that mean that if Drew Pine maximizes ability, we would be saying no need to get a transfer quarterback? No, there's nothing Drew could do from here on out that's going to make me say don't get a transfer quarterback. But what I am saying is I'm not going to say that kid's that I'm just pushing Drew Pine to the side or I'm pushing Tyler Buckner to the side and handing that kid the reins as the quarterback. That kid's got to show me he can compete for it. And my job, even if I get a transfer quarterback, your job is, and this is what I'm saying if I'm Marcus Freeman, okay, we got you a transfer quarterback, whoever the OC quarterback's coach is. But you know what your job is? Your job is to make sure that transfer quarterback's the best player he can be. Your job is to make sure Tyler Buckner is the best player he can be. And your job is to make Drew Pine and Steve Angeli and Ron Paulus III the best quarterbacks they can be. And then we'll figure all the other stuff out. And that's what I don't think we've done enough of here at Notre Dame when we look at this thing is there's been too many coaches that say, hey, we got this guy ready, or, well, this guy's not doing this, doing that, doing this other thing. And so it's the players aren't good enough. No. We don't know that yet. Are you doing the best job you can to get him ready to go? Then we'll figure all the stuff out, right? And that's the thing for me is this is not the best that Drew Pine can be. You can't tell me that the best Drew Pine can do is what we saw in the first half compared to what we saw in the second half. Right? The first half, we're all thinking, dude, if they play like this the rest of the year, they can beat everybody. The second half, we're thinking, God, they may not beat Navy. Right? Like, that's not just a player thing. That's just not a coaching thing. But at the end of the day, I believe this with all my heart. At the end of the day, I'm holding the people going to get the most accountability for me are the people getting paid to do this. A lot of money. Right? And that's the coaches. It's the experienced people. Your job is to get the most out of this kid, and I don't think we've seen that yet. And until we do, I'm just not gonna sit there and say, oh, it's all Drew, it's all Marist, it's all this guy, right? Yeah. You did not put Marist in position to be successful today. He didn't hold up his end of the bargain either. But you know who I'm more pissed at? The guy that I'm paying over $1 million to do his job today, right? So that's where I'm at. Michael Berg with a super chat. Thank you, Michael. Effort and desire block yet another one. Man, guys. I mean, I feel like because we're so frustrated, we have not had enough chance to talk about Brian Mason. I mean, what else is there to say, fellas? The dude is a star as a coach. I mean, another block kick, recorded 2 onside kicks. Because remember, they tried to catch Notre Dame on an onside kick early, and they recovered it. Prince Colley saw it and jumped right on it. You know, like they were going back, but they had their eyes on the kick. I didn't like that call either, Vince.
I didn't like that call. Bad call.
Yeah. Yep. Alberto with a super chat. Thank you, my friend from Spain. The OC can only look as good as the quarterback makes him look. Pine had super glue in his hands in the second half. Alberto, I get where you're coming from on that, but at the same time,
it goes
back to what we just said, Vince.
It's part of the problem, but not the whole problem.
Right. Tommy Reese is not the only problem. Drew Pine is not the only problem, right? Marcus Freeman's not the only problem. There's culpability all around to say why they didn't play the way they need to in the second half today. They got to figure it out and move on next week and make it better. That's what it is. And I'm tired of the constant, well, they had a bad game, so a week after Clemson, fire them.
Yeah.
You know, Fred Studelbauer, thank you. Stadelbauer, Fred, thank you for super chat. 2 questions. 1, why is Estime not starting? Tommy plays favorites. Feed the beast. Marcus Freeman needs to step in. 2, would you love Riley and Dugan at Notre Dame in 2023? Number 1.
Can I answer the first
Estime
part?
is please do.
It doesn't matter who starts. They play.
Right.
They're all playing. I don't care who's out there first. It doesn't matter. Sometimes it's Diggs. Sometimes it's Estime. Sometimes it's Tyree. It doesn't matter.
Right.
They're all going to play. Relax. That doesn't matter.
Can I say, you know what frustrates me is we have this thing. It's like, what was that stupid vampire werewolf movie with that girl that's always sad? What's you know what I mean? Like, what's
You watch a lot of sci-fi, so I don't know.
Nah, Twilight.
Werewolf? Oh, yeah,
Right.
I did that.
So the only reason I
It's
know
always
this is because like I have young nieces and nephews, and there was like this. There was like team this dude and team that dude.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I remember that part.
And as fans, we do that way too freaking much. I love Estime, so everyone else sucks, and you need to only play. Who led Notre Dame in rushing last week? Who led Notre Dame in yards per carry last week?
Logan Diggs.
LD.
Thank you. Right? So, you know, they're all going to play. To Vince, to your point, they're all going to get their touches. Estime has not proven that he can be a 4-quarter guy. You know? I mean, like, if you're going to say that, at least say it, spell it right, Ryan. Come on, man. Sorry, got a little side group chat going on. But my point is like, why is Estime not starting? Because Logan Diggs is also playing great. And remember that game this last month when Audric Estime fumbled a ball? Who stepped in and carried that team the rest of the game?
Yeah.
It was Logan Diggs. They're all great backs. Let's appreciate the fact that they're all great backs. Right? They're very good players. Let's enjoy that. And not get into this team Estime, team that. Some guy arguing me about like on Twitter. Love the guy, and he's a longtime follower, but like, you know, Diggs is not in the same league as Estime. Like, what? Like, they're all really good. They're all going to play. Let's take advantage of that. And that makes it harder on the defense when they are all playing because they are different backs.
Correct.
So why is Estime not starting? Don't care. You know, like Logan's playing well.
Nothing.
I mean, you know, and Estime started 2 games ago and got the first 2 carries of the game against Syracuse.
Right. Yes. The game after he fumbled, he got the start.
Right.
Like, it's fine.
It's not about – do I think Tommy Rees plays favorites at times? Yes, but Tommy Rees clearly likes Audric Estime. He clearly likes Logan Diggs. Clearly doesn't like Chris Tyree. Right? So if you want to have a conversation about a coach not getting a running back enough touches because he doesn't like him, Audric Estime ain't that dude to have that conversation about.
No.
It's number 25.
Yeah.
Second part of the question, would love to see Riley Dugan at Notre Dame in 2023. Max Duggan. I'm worried about beating Boston College. I'm not worried about 23 right now. So, and no, I'm focused on beating Boston College right now. TJ Fallon with a super chat. Thank you, TJ. I think we just lost Brian Mason. Someone is going to make him a head coach. He is a star.
It's possible.
I mean, yeah.
But at the same time, that is what your goal is as a head coach, is to bring in guys that are eventually going to leave you because they're so good. That's how it works, man. Like, you can't be upset with a guy for coming on board and then leaving for a better job.
Yeah.
So you pat him on the back, you give him a hug, and you say, "Good luck, man, and I hope we never face you." You know, like it just okay.
That's what a head coach wants.
Great.
That's what you want. You want your coaches to get promotions to the things that they want to do.
Yes.
Riza, my guy Riza with a super chat. Been a minute, just saying thanks for all the great work, Riza. I hope you're doing great, man. Hope you're doing great. Thank you for the big super chat. Michael S., and we are appreciative of that, and we definitely will continue to do our best to do the great work. Michael S., in 1987 champion year, Notre Dame almost lost to Navy. Notre Dame won in 88, but yes, they had some years where they didn't play great. Correct. They did not play well against Michigan State that year, at least not the way that they did in other games, if I remember correctly. Michael S. also with super chat. Isn't Tom Rees too inexperienced to know what appropriate adjustments to make with a pine talent? No, I don't think he's too inexperienced to know that per se. I think it's part of the lesson learned, but I mean,
no,
I think it's a stubbornness thing more so than anything. Yeah. I think it's a stubbornness thing at times, but he'll hopefully mature and get better at it. I think he will. Derek Rosenden, why no outside zone with Tyree?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
they didn't run out hardly at all.
Like
outside.
a Bucks. I mean, a team that's loading the box, pin and pull, man. I mean, Notre Dame did it in 2017. I mean, it's like, you know.
Well, they threw one toss to Logan for like 4 yards to the left.
That's a good. It ended up getting 6 out of it. Yeah, it was a good play.
Yeah, 6. Yeah.
Yeah, it ended up being a good play. Run that about 3-4 more times, and give me a couple. I mean, because the team's condensing in, pin and pull. Pin down, have the receiver crack down, pull one of your guards out to the corner, and you're out off to the races. As hard as they were crashing inside, you're pitching right outside of that sucker if you're pinning and pulling.
Right.
And that's not a hard concept to put in. You have stuff like that in your system, and that's what counter is. I mean, counter is a pin and pull in theory. I mean, for all intents and purposes. Tyler Evans with a super chat. Thank you, Tyler. Clarence Lewis saved a touchdown with that interception. Nice play. Yeah, that was a big play. That was
huge
a big play.
Huge momentum swing.
I don't know if it had been a touchdown because he was on that guy the entire time, but it was a big play.
And he cut it off when he saw where the ball was.
Right.
Like he cut off his angle.
Yeah. It's a great play. No, it's a great play, Tyler. And thank you for the super chat. McKay Rippey, thanks for talking me off the ledge. You're welcome. You're welcome, Master Shifu, very much for being with us today. And it is funny how games like this can bring out the worst in some people. You know what I mean? Like, I get called a lot of things.
It's okay.
I get called a lot of things. A Pollyanna is not something I've been called in a very long time. So must be doing something right. Milton fan 15. I love how the people that think that because you disagree, you're lying. Because I'm not telling you what you want to hear, I'm lying. So those are always funny too. Those
big
are fun.
Fat liar.
Yeah. We don't need any fat jokes today, Vince. All right. All right. Milton fan 15, thank you for the super chat. Can you explain what Navy did in the second half to shut the offense down? Sean, I'll let you take a crack at this one. Would screens have been good way to back Navy off the blitz? B. Lindsay catch of the year, and this was early in the show, but
we talked about this. Yes, screens would have been really good. Buck sweep, jet sweeps. Just a lot of things that could have gone against what they were doing. I think honestly, Brian, maybe the staff went in at halftime and expected Navy to come out and not double down. Maybe they felt like, okay, we did enough in the first half. I don't think they're going to be even more aggressive than they were in the first half. Mm-hmm. And it might have been a shock to them initially in the second half. Right? So, but anytime, that's pretty much anytime you have an aggressive team up front, and especially the linebackers coming downhill as fast as they were, you absolutely get your linemen out, a couple of screens. Heck, they could have ran a quick screen, to the tight end right there off the edge line of scrimmage, a middle screen. They could have done a lot of things to combat and take advantage of the aggressiveness of the Navy. I give a lot of credit to Navy and their defensive coordinator. They chose not to die by 1,000 cuts. They were like, dude, we're not about to sit up here and just let you just beat up on us all game long.
I loved it.
Just wear us down. If you're going to get us in 1 or 2 plays, then okay. We can live with that.
And then that gets your offense back on the field.
Absolutely.
That gets your offense back on the field.
Right. Yeah. So, and just not having the answer to that in the second half, it can come from a lot of things. But I'll say this once again. When you have an opportunity, when things are going against you, you have to make the plays. And Notre Dame had 3 or 4 opportunities to make plays to stymie the momentum of Navy. And they just couldn't make the plays. The opportunities were there to change the tide of the game. They didn't, and Navy kept the momentum and continued their comeback. So as much as we can sit up here and look for adjustments and different things, when you get opportunities, you have to take advantage of those opportunities.
Yep. Go to the next super chat from Irish DB. What is up with the stubborn duo run game? Is it because the staff has a lack of faith that this offense can't execute any other type of run game? It better not be, because that'd be stupid. I don't know. I have no clue. I mean,
it very could be, for all I know, run game.
Saw it at a clinic and fell in love with it, and that's just what they're going to roll with. I have no clue. I think one thing about duo is you can run it if you're good at it, as we saw against Clemson. We finally saw them figure it out against Syracuse and Clemson. Is if you do it right, it looks different. I mean, they ran it so many different ways against Clemson. So many different ways. And it looked at times I'm thinking, is that G-Rap? No, that's duo with a guard pulling, right? And And thank you to Ryan Roberts for being the one that knows that it's team, what did he say? It's team Edward and team Jacob, because Ryan Roberts is the only one that actually knew that because he's a Twilight fan. So we appreciate that, Ryan. But it's a play that can be ran a lot of different ways. But as far as why they emphasize it so much, I have no idea. I mean, last week we saw him mix it up a little bit with some zones and some other stuff, and it looked great. I don't know. I didn't realize it was a play that you had to only do that play and nothing else. It's a little strange. It's a little strange to me. I don't know.
And they have athletic kids, so
yes, exactly. Well, when they've run zone, Sean, they've been really good this year. I mean, they've been really good at it. Ed 3 with a super chat. Thank you. Super sticker. Thank you, Ed, very, very much. JP with a super chat. Thank you, JP. If the other team loads the box, Notre Dame is in trouble. If they pressure Pine, he folds. I know Reese catches the heat, but Pine has to make plays, need a quarterback. Well, I mean,
we've been saying that for about 5 years now.
But Clemson loaded the box against Notre Dame the entire game. So did Syracuse.
Yes,
and
that is very true.
Look, Notre Dame didn't play well up front today, but
they were out. They were outnumbered a lot in the second half.
Right. And they were outnumbered against Clemson. They were outnumbered against Syracuse. I mean, there were some lack of creativity issues, but it's not quite that simple. But if the part about Pine, there's some merit to that. He's got to handle those situations better. There's no doubt. I'm with you on that one, JP. I'm with you on that one. Ray Holcraft with super chat. Thank you, Ray. As the season moves through the final stretch, which players have really developed or have shown real flashes that you're excited about now and into the future beyond Benjamin Morrison? That's a good one. You guys want to?
Snead,
Tobias,
fast and athletic.
Yeah.
Junior looks good in the middle once he starts getting more playing time and gets to be settled in. So I mean that linebacking core is very exciting. Jaden Mickey has made
running backs.
Absolutely. I'm kidding. Jaden Mickey's made some mistakes, obviously, recently, but I still am very excited about him in the future. I just think he kind of hit that freshman wall a little bit. You know what I mean? So I'm excited about his future for sure. Still pretty excited about the two offensive tackles. They're considered young. They're both sophomores. Thank God they can come back next year. So very excited about those two guys.
Yeah, and Blake is really, I'd have to watch the film to see how he played today. But coming in today, he'd kind of gotten just kind of better each week. And I think Deion Colsey emerging has been good. Jaden Thomas has been, this is kind of what you thought he could be when you use him correctly. Yes. Kid's a good football player,
And I think Colsey can be good too.
Yeah. I mean, he did well. They've had a lot of good things happen this year. There's been a lot of players step up this year. And it's like, I'm like, man, I wish we had another year of Tariq Bracy this year. Like, that'd be nice.
Right.
The way
Bryce Young just got a ball tipped at the line of scrimmage. So it happens to good quarterbacks too.
He's been in because he's not tall enough. Can't see over the line.
Can't tall enough.
So, it's all good.
I think I'm excited to see, honestly, some of the position changes that might happen with the young players. I think Ramon Henderson could be moved closer to the line in the defense.
Like a rover kind of thing.
Yeah, I think Xavier Watts flashed today. He had a couple of plays.
He's fast.
He's really fast. And I think they said that was one of the reasons why they decided to keep him at safety, because he's starting to get it and starting to play faster. So I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see Deion Colsey. Like fully healthy and
absolutely
season develop. I'm excited to see him. It's a lot of players on this roster.
Gabriel Rubio's really coming along this year. Like absolutely, he's another one.
Nana has come along. I don't know if you would consider him young, but Nana's come along.
He's played solid.
To me, he didn't say young players. Yeah. He just said which players. About now in the future. And Nana is not young, but Nana has eligibility left.
Yeah,
I mean, Nana's got time left, and because of COVID, he's got actually a couple years left. So,
Justin has no availability left, correct? Adam
he does.
He does have 1 year left
because he took a red shirt in 2018, and then the COVID year. So, because of the COVID year, he has a 6th year. Yes, I don't think he's going to take it as of right now, but I would be totally happy if he came back for sure.
Yeah, me too,
for sure.
Yeah, but it's a lot. Josh Burnham.
Yeah.
Even though he hasn't really played, from what we've heard about the kid and what I saw with his first step.
That's the thing. Ryan texted me when he got to the stadium. He's like, Josh Burnham's really filling out. It's one thing he said watching him go through pregame. It's one of the comments that Ryan made to me early on. So that was good to see. Mm-hmm. Bayside Tiger 6. I always laugh when this one comes up because you know what the Bayside Tigers are. It's a very good name. Did anyone else think Clarence Lewis might take his helmet off after that interception? Clarence Lewis is not getting any NIL penalties. Sorry. That's Kyle Hamilton's. It
was Kyle Hamilton like though. That was a really good job.
It's a great play. It was a great play.
A discipline play, right?
Yeah.
It was a discipline play for him to follow and not come closer to the line of scrimmage.
Well, and not chase the back because it looked like a reverse. I mean, yeah. Very heady play. Very heady play. Absolutely. W118CMH with a super chat. Thank you very much. Offensive line was overwhelmed by numbers. Agree. Defense was gashed up the middle early, deep late. Agree. Issues galore, which leads to the obvious question: what is your prediction for Notre Dame basketball this year?
Wow. Well, they almost.
That's a great segue, man.
So,
that is a great. That's my favorite question of the night. That is awesome. That is great.
I actually think they have Sweet 16 potential.
Yeah.
Well, they better be able to pull out games because they should have lost to Radford the other night.
Yeah.
And
well,
really good chance they're going to lose to Youngstown State tomorrow.
Was it
so
I like the guard. For me, it's always guard play when I look forward to the tournament specifically. Yeah, I like their guard. I like their veteran. They have good veterans. Leszewski should be key if he can stay healthy.
They need an inside presence, man. It can't just be Leszewski. They need somebody inside.
Yeah. Well, I think the freshman should flash for me. He's going to be fine. He's going to give some size. Yeah. But they're going to have to – I still can't believe they only played 6 guys in the opener. That was just kind of hilarious to me.
Yep.
But, hey, it is what it is. But all I know is Vince –
Niagara to come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got spoiled with Mooney all those years, Vince.
Yeah.
That's what you were used to.
We know what's wild is they went through so many stretches where they were they were just producing a big every year. I mean, it was Garrity and Hanratty and not Hanratty, but Herringody and Cooley and Mooney. I mean, and then it's just like Zach August was such an important part to that team. What was it? The team that went to the Elite Eight. Yes, absolutely. And then now it's just like they're really struggling to get those. I mean, Torn Francis, right? He was an important part to what they do. So I mean, early in the season losses in basketball don't mean as much to me. Remember the year when Michigan won the national championship game, the year after they went to the Elite Eight. Well, they lost to like Charlotte early in the year at one point in time, But to your point, Vince, they're going to have to. I still can't believe they went 6 guys in the first game of the year. Like that was like weird. But that's Bray. This is Bray. He's just not going to use his bench for whatever reason.
I was going to say, if anybody's watched Notre Dame basketball the last 23 years, I know it ain't going to be much more than 7. So
no. I don't know how to pronounce DMacic 2, new to IB this year and enjoy the content. Thank you. Any recruiting concerns after a third bad game this year? Feels like the loss last week's momentum. Guys and gals, I keep telling you all this. Recruits are not that emotional when it comes to recruiting. A kid that stuck with Notre Dame through Marshall and Stanford is not a week after beating Clemson leaving because they only beat Navy by 3. Kids just aren't that way.
Correct.
They're just not that way.
And even opposing coaches aren't going to be like, did you see how Notre Dame played against Navy? Come to our school. Like, that's not even a thing. Like, I'm sorry. It's just not.
Well, I mean, if they do, it's like, it's not working. It's not going to work.
That's
silly.
That's weak.
Doesn't work that way. Yeah, it just doesn't work that way. So, and fortunately, kids aren't that way. Because, again, you got to look at it. These players don't look at these things the same way. They're not looking at it as fans. We're passionate. We're fans. We ride the up and down roller coaster. That's what we do as fans. These kids are making a educated decision about what's best for the future of their lives. They're not riding that emotional wave. You know what I mean?
Right,
and that's good. And that's not a criticism as fans because it's different. You're not making a decision about where you're going to spend the next 4 years of your collegiate career. You're enjoying a football program. Let's see here.
You got to.
Here we go. China. Shane Phillips. My wife came home from the mall and declared the game over at 35-13. I blame her. See, Where were you the first 2.5 hours of the show? You could have saved us a lot of freaking time.
Exactly.
You could have let us know that this was all your wife's fault at the very beginning.
That was my favorite one.
Yeah.
I had to
Yeah.
star that one.
Love
I mean,
Love it.
just tell her she's not allowed to see. That's the funny thing is like when she came home from the mall and they were winning 35-13. I don't blame your wife. You should not have let her back in the house. You should have told her, hey, go, you know what, go do some more shopping, go have yourself some lunch and then come home after the game. That's what you should have done. That's on you, Shane. It's on you. Blaming your wife. Can you believe that, guys? Tell you what, I'm always saying that because a similar thing kind of happened with my wife. She was in a meeting until halftime and then started watching the second half as soon as it started going bad. So, what am I joking about? What, Vince? What am I?
What? Oh,
about blaming Shane?
What Ryan said.
Oh, what Ryan said? Yeah. No,
in
Ryan's must be bored on his way home because he's saying some absurd things in the chat right now. Tyler Evans, exactly. Vanderbilt and Purdue won me some money today. Did Vanderbilt end up beating Kentucky or did they just cover the spread?
That's their first SEC win in 27 tries.
Good for Clark Lee. Went on the road and beat a ranked team, a team that should have been ranked, but a ranked team.
Whatever.
Good win. Hey, Kentucky should have been ranked this week, but that's still a good win. Kentucky's a quality football team under Mark Stoops. That's a good win on the road.
Yes. And
did you guys see West Virginia beat Oklahoma? So is Peyton Bowen going to decommit and go to Oklahoma?
Yes.
Texas A&M, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
it
just doesn't work like that. And talking about how important coaching is, do you guys realize that UConn is now bowl eligible? They beat Liberty today.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching matters, people.
Yeah,
coaching matters. It does. And speaking of that, speaking of coaching mattering, Mike Elko, having a 7-3 now, fellas. They went 3-9 last year. All right, let's get to the last couple here. Hugh Murtha with a super sticker. Thank you, Hugh. Vince, can you look real quick and see if he had a question underneath that? Because sometimes people
looked at the time and I didn't see anything.
Don't see anything? Okay.
Mm-mm.
All right. So if you could just, I'm looking there now. I don't see anything either. So just supporting us, and we appreciate that very much. I just wanted to make sure we didn't lose that. But yeah, great job by Clark Lee today. Coach Lee's a good dude. He is. I'm glad for him. And a good friend of mine coaches on that staff too, so I'm happy for him too. I'll have to text him after we're done. John A1 is going to wrap things up here. How does Notre Dame get first half pine consistently? I'll tell you how they do it. Adjust better. That's what you do. Adjust better. Know what your opponent does. Know what and be able to say, hey, look, we know what they're going to do. Let's come out and do some of this. And this is kind of what we're going to do. Okay. So I think Ryan's I'll tell you guys what I think Ryan's doing right now when we're off the show. But I mean, honestly, John, it's adjust better. I mean, guys, you got anything else? I mean, it's adjust better. Be a step ahead and don't let him get into that funk. You know what I mean?
You have to know sometimes it goes beyond what's in the book as a coach. It's a feel. I just feel like in this game, there was a time in the second half where I got to get this kid back steady.
Right.
He's flustered. I got to make sure I get him back steady. Forget what I want to do. I have to get him back steady. And that goes beyond just X's and O's. That's understanding your team, understanding your players, and what you need to do to put them in the best position. I think you can put that right in the same basket with adjustments.
Yeah. Do something to get him comfortable. Get him out of the pocket. Give him a screen. Just tell him, hey, you're throwing a go route to Braden. There's no right or wrong here, buddy. You just drop back and throw it to Braden.
Yeah.
There it is. There it is. So, all right. So, John, we appreciate that. And everybody that was here today, whether you gave a super chat or not, we appreciate y'all very, very much. It was a long show, a frustrating show, but I think we were all able to vent a little bit. And now it's back to work, right? So it's kind of watch some football today, and tomorrow the Notre Dame team is going to watch some film and then get back to work and get ready for Boston College, and that's going to be the key, right? It's another opportunity for this team to get better, and that's what we're going to hope to see next week. So,
is it wrong? Is it wrong that I really want Notre Dame to bust back out the green jerseys for Senior Day so everybody loses their mind in the chat? Because I think that's what's going to happen.
Loses their mind as in like they're excited
because they're oh my god, they're wearing the green green jerseys are gonna lose. Oh, that whole thing. Like that's
what I'm sorry, Vince, you cut out. What were they like? Can you do that again? What were they like?
That only works every other time.
I think people be fired up about it. I think they
I love the green jerseys that they had on with the names on the back and everything else. And and Marcus Freeman talked about wearing them again. Well, you're running out of opportunities, so I think that's going to happen.
What I still will say, and I know there's going to be a lot of people going to be pissed at me for saying this, I would still love to see them come out with a home alternate uniform of gold helmets, green jerseys, white pants with a gold stripe.
Oh, they come out with white pants.
Fire.
That would be
fire. That would be unbelievable. And then about 10, 70-plus-year-old donors would withdraw their money from the program. But that's a different story for a different day, because you can only wear gold pants, apparently. So anyway, that's going to do it for today's show, everybody. As Mace AK says, join the message board, everybody, at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, share this podcast, leave a 5-star review. Visit the IB store for the very best merch. And as always, go Irish. I couldn't have said it better myself. For Sean and Vince, I'm Brian. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. And we will talk to you again tomorrow on the Irish Breakdown podcast when we do our Upon Further review.